Well. Here we are. 11-6, or excuse me, 9-6. I'm doing Illinois, giving to Illinois too much credit. Iowa on the short end of a 9-6 football game that featured, 5 field goals. 5. We're going to be joined by Coach Don Patterson in a few minutes. I want to tell everybody something before we get going here. Two things. One about programming here, and then one about where I stand on the Iowa offense, in case you don't already know. All right, because I want to get this out of the way. All right. I have not talked with Coach Patterson. We'll, of course, be welcoming him to the show here in just minutes. He'll be here in just moments. He's waiting for the official game stats, which I don't believe have been sent out, but are expected to be sent in a press release in just moments. But the first thing with our post-game show this evening, we're going to try to move the post-game show not in a different direction, but I do feel like when we've got Coach Patterson here that we really need to utilize his knowledge and his expertise, especially when you have an offense that's as dreadful as this offense is. And of course, there were good things tonight. Absolutely were great things on defense. There were even a couple things on offense that I want to say were positive signs. However, doesn't change where I stand on the coaching staff and the offense in general. But my point on bringing this up is we're going to try to keep our calls, our chats, not to a minimum, but we're going to try to shorten things up a little bit. Do appreciate everybody who's here each and every night, each and every week. And of course, if you're new to the channel here, I'm live every Wednesday evening, almost every Wednesday evening. Haven't missed a Wednesday at 9 this entire season, taking your calls, taking your chats. And of course, I'm fine with fielding longer calls on Wednesday evenings, but I don't want to crowd out the expertise that we have with Coach Patterson. He's very generous with his time. So if I shorten your phone call or I shorten your video chat, please don't take it personally, because we just want to get the most out of an offensive expert, and that is Coach Don Patterson. So, again, let's try to keep the calls short tonight. And again, if I cut you off short, it's nothing personal. Again, if you can limit it to 1 or 2 questions, and you're welcome to call back later in the show. But I just want to really focus our attentions on what Coach Patterson has to say, because I think his opinion, I'll admit, his opinion is far more important than mine. Given his pedigree, I think he has earned that respect and earned that right to give his opinion and have his voice heard. So I certainly want to take the time to do that this evening. All right, while we're waiting for Coach Patterson, we have several callers on hold. Let's first of all get to, well, actually, before we get to Paul's next in our chat. I see Ryan wants to wait for Coach Patterson. If you're in the StreamYard queue and you want to wait for Coach Patterson, shoot me a private chat here in StreamYard. Let me know that you're here for Coach Patterson. Otherwise, we'll throw you on here before Coach P shows up. The second thing I wanted to bring up before we get into substance this evening, as you see the score there on the banner, 9-6, I want to make this very clear. And I think I've pretty much been clear with my language, but don't want to leave any of this to interpretation. Anything I'm about to say, I don't want to leave any of it up to interpretation. It is clear to me, it is apparent beyond a reasonable doubt now that it is time to make a coaching change at offensive coordinator. There is no way around it. If you have a different opinion, you're welcome to that opinion. I'm going to treat you with respect, and I'm going to respect your opinion. I'm not going to agree with your opinion, but Brian Ferentz has to go. This experiment is over. I think I've been clear about that prior, but tonight was just further solidification. This is not living in the moment. Brian Ferentz needs to be relieved of his duties. And, if you're going to do it now. I said last week that I don't know that it would make a difference during the season. I don't know that it could hurt, because I don't know how this offense could get much worse, frankly. All right? I don't know how this offense could get much worse. And our caller who's on the phone line, I'm going to put you on hold, so hang tight. That's where I stand. Okay? I'm not going to beat a dead horse. Again, I want to spend most of the time on the show this evening talking substance with Coach Patterson, but that's where I stand on the coaching situation. Brian needs to go, and it's nothing personal. It's not working, and it's painful to watch. And for the first time, I think, in my life, there were moments in that second half where I did not care. I did not care. And maybe you say I'm a bad fan, or I'm a bad post-game host or podcast or whatever you want to call me. I don't really care about that either. If you think that makes me a bad podcast host or a bad Hawkeye fan, I don't care, because there were moments in the second half where I stopped caring. And I have a right as a fan, just like you have a right as a fan, to form your own opinion based on what you're seeing, how you're feeling. And that was a true signal to me that this experiment is over. I no longer have any reason to believe that things can change or that things will change. And as much as I love what Kirk has done, that does not make me put on blinders to the shortcomings of this football team that's led by Kirk and his son Brian. Now, the question about Kirk and his future as the Iowa head coach, he's built up immunity. All right. Whether you like it or not, he has built up immunity. Brian's built up no immunity. The only immunity Brian has built up, all right, is when the hospital typed up his birth certificate, 30 years ago. That's the only immunity he's built up, is by having the last name Ferentz. That's it. So it's not me having a double standard, or I've had people accuse me of being blinded by nostalgia. Kirk just won 10 games last year. That is a fact. But the offense is dreadful. That's also a fact. Let's get to our first caller, Paul, who is on the line. And Paul, you got a big Hawkeye logo in the background. You're shining it proud this evening. But I hope that this season so far, and I hope this game tonight didn't sap you of your black and gold fandom, because it's making it hard for me to be proud to be a Hawkeye.
Well, Hawkeye through and through here. I kind of echo your sentiments. I think it's time for Gary Barta to step in and be an athletic director and sit Kurt down and say, this is obviously not working. And so he has to be an athletic director and be an administrator and say, you got to make a change. You just got to step in to do it.
You're right.
And I think obviously in the Big Ten, the last 3 weeks, you've seen Nebraska step in. And then last week, the shocker with Wisconsin. Though if you ask Wisconsin fans, they've been wanting that for a while this year. So Barta has to be an athletic director and just do it. And I think the thing that finally broke my back tonight, the straw that broke the camel's back, was that interception. And they showed and I got the screenshot, I can share it if you want, was the shot of the sideline and Brian Ferentz and Petrus just laughing about it. How in the world you can do that when you probably just lost the game and laugh about it is just unacceptable in my book. I've coached sports, granted they're only high school, but if I saw one of my coaches laughing if we just turned over the ball, I would be furious at that coach. I'd be so mad at them. Why are you laughing at this moment? That's just unacceptable. And if that's the way you're going to be about it, maybe you shouldn't be here anymore.
I respect your thoughts, Paul. Now, I think if you were to ask Brian, I don't know, I guess I did see at one point where Brian was smiling and it felt like a weird time to smile, but I didn't read into it too much. However, I didn't see exactly what you saw. If you asked Brian without seeing it, if you asked Brian or you asked Kirk and he looked back at it, they would probably defend it and say, well, that had nothing to do with the interception. It was, but I understand your point. And this has occurred in other sports with other teams. When you see body language on the sideline that indicates to a fan base that you don't care as much as the fan base cares, and whether that's right or wrong, I get where you're coming from.
I don't think it's if you care more than the fan base. I mean, it's just body language in general. Like, if I'm the offensive line, I see my offensive coordinator laughing of what just happened. How does that make me feel as a player?
Yeah. That's true.
I don't care about what the fans' reaction is. I'd care about what the player reaction is. I mean, he's laughing that we just possibly just lost the game.
And I just want to make this clear, too. I haven't mentioned so far, I've been on the air for like 15 minutes. I haven't mentioned Spencer Petrus' name once. Because, I mean, was he good tonight? No, not really. I mean, he made some nice throws. I mean, he was also made the typical throws that we've seen out of the quarterback position here at Iowa this year and last year and the year before that. But this game, Paul, epitomized the reason why, in my opinion, that it's over as far as moving forward with this offense, because it wasn't just quarterback play. It's everything. And I've been saying that for months, right? It's everything. It's line play. Now it's penalties have become a big bugaboo. it's time and space. I mean, the play calling, the play calling in the red zone, and almost killing themselves. Well, the field goal that was missed, I don't blame Drew Stevens for that. As a 45-yard field goal, was it makeable? Yes. Drew would say that he should have made that field goal, but the play calling is just a microcosm too of these issues with Brian, and I just don't know. I don't know how to perceive it anymore. I really don't.
Well, in coaching 101, when the good times are good, you give credit to the players. When the times are bad, you take responsibility as a coach. And I don't think I've really heard any of them do that this year. Take responsibility for what's going on. All I've heard is everything's just dandy. We love seeing what's going on in practice, and everything seems to be fine. Well, I don't know what's going on in practice, but obviously something's not going right because it's not transferring onto the field, and someone needs to take responsibility for it. And that's what you do as a coach. If you're struggling, you take responsibility as a coach. Whether it's the coordinator or the head coach, you take responsibility for it, and someone has to take responsibility now. Iowa has a good chance not going to a bowl game now. It's very possible Iowa could not go to a bowl game. Looking at the schedule.
Did you see? I'm just curious. Did you see my show on Wednesday? Did you see?
No, I wasn't able to see that one. No.
My theme on Wednesday was, will Iowa even make a bowl game? Because you probably saw my picks. I had Illinois winning tonight. I had Illinois winning 14-9, and I hate to say this, but I was pretty close to being right. It was the exact type of game I expected.
Ohio State, don't see it happening. At Purdue, we have not played Purdue very well the last 3 or 4 years. Minnesota, PJ Fleck is making shirts that's saying he hates Iowa, and the Minnesota fan base wants to beat Iowa so bad, and so the players do. And Nebraska with their new interim coach, it's very possible Iowa could win only 2 more games the year and be 5-7 and not go to a bowl game. And I'm like you, I'm a passionate fan, and I get where you're coming from, but some of us in my social circles have said, not me personally, but some have said, would it be best if Iowa just doesn't go to a bowl game, and that way change has to happen?
I get where you're coming from, Paul, and I appreciate your phone call. I got to move on, but thanks for being a part of the show. I know it's an opportunity to sound off, but it's also not an enjoyable thing to talk about, because I wish we were talking about a team that was taking advantage of an elite defense and an elite special teams unit, but we're not. So I appreciate the call, Paul.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to Ryan. I know you got some questions for Coach Patterson, but we'll get you here for a minute, Ryan. I can guess what you're going to say, but go ahead.
Hey, Corey. I guess hats off to the 27 people in the Chicagoland area that give a crap about Illinois football. So good on you. Because
let's give the crowd credit, Ryan. They showed up. That was an impressive. I know we didn't get a full
downstate, but you know,
we didn't get a full view of the crowd. I don't know how much the Big Ten Network was being biased with the camera, but that was a tough place to play tonight from a noise standpoint, and I give Brett credit because he's built that in a short period of time.
Yeah, and this Hawkeye tattoo is growing wider because the guy needed sandwiches, I think, causing half the famine in the world. But anyway, beyond that.
Wow.
Yeah, well, screw him. Anyway, Beyond that, today was an offensive disgrace. Good on Brett. He won, whatever. I mean, they're still Illinois. They're still the armpit of the West, along with Northwestern, both in the same disgraceful state that my driver's license says, but that's not my point of my call. Today, earlier this week, Gary Barta was in the Press Citizen saying he had full faith in Brian Ferentz. So
yes, he did.
Are you a better offensive coordinator? I mean, the great Gary Barta, I mean, I guess what pisses me off is would he allow the volleyball coach to suck like this? Would he allow the softball?
He didn't allow
coach?
hey, listen, Ryan,
I know he fired her.
allow
That's
the
why I
volleyball
said
coach.
okay. But how about the softball, or you name the sport, right? Obviously, Lisa Bluter, why would you ever mess with that? Fran's done well for the, outside of the Sweet 16. Anyway, my point is it feels like, and I'm going to get blasted, but whatever. Kirk probably told Barta to put some positive statement out. What I just find funny is, to my friends, I was joking that it was going to be I have full faith in our offense or full faith in Brian. I said that about 2 days after the Michigan game. And sure enough. And so I'm just laughing, right? It's a joke. The whole thing's a joke. And the thing is I want Kirk. I like Kirk. But if he's not willing to adapt to the environment around him and he just wants to be a fat cat, a term he used against his team 10 years ago when he thought we were kind of getting a little lazy about things. I mean, I'm not criticizing it. I'm not saying he's doing it, but good God. The statements, it just feels like we're going to get so much Brian shoved down our throats. But there was also, okay, go ahead. I got another.
Let's just say real quick, Ryan, but by the way, I need to move on to another caller, and I want to bring you back with Coach Patterson. But I just want to say this before I let you go, Ryan. I have this feeling that, listen, it's just a feeling, and maybe it's me living in this moment. But I have to think something is going to happen before the end of the season. I'm getting to that point.
Are you serious? I'm really sorry, Corey. I love your show. I love you, Corey. You're out of your mind.
Listen, Ryan,
you know why?
Ryan,
you know why?
Go ahead.
Ferentz will not allow Gary Barta to do anything. Kirk Ferentz won't give him the Scooby snack.
I don't think Kirk Ferentz is that dumb, Brian. I think Kirk Ferentz understands he's not a dummy. Even though he's blinded by nepotism, he understands what's happening here. And as I've said before, he understands that what's happening right now with this offense, what's happening to Brian Ferentz is not good for Brian. It's not good for Kirk. It's not good for Iowa. It's not good for the fan base. It's not good for Petrus. It's not good for anybody. So I think he understands that. He's been in denial a long time. But at some point, it's going to get to the point where he's going to come to terms with it.
We're also having the same conversation we had in 2012 with new offensive coordinator Greg Davis and
it was never this bad. It was never this bad, Ryan.
I agree. Vandenberg is over Petrus every day of the week, and Vandenberg. Well, that was the quarterback. Vandenberg was in 2012. The quarterback, and he was pretty good in 2011, and he was god awful in 2012 because of the new regime. Instead of throwing the ball down the field, you're going to dink and dunk and this, that, and the other, and you got a 52% at best rate at getting your dink and dunk. I mean, in 2012, it was garbage. And I agree with you, Corey. It's even worse today. And is Kirk saddled with a $48 million buyout? What the hell are you going to do? And I'm not saying I want him gone. My best case scenario is Kirk. You stay on, you hire good quarterback and offensive coordinator people, and you stay the hell away from that side of the ball.
Here's the deal. This is the one thing, and I understand we go back to this about how Barta won't do anything because Kirk runs the program, and I agree with you. I do agree with you. And part of Iowa's problems is they don't have a competent AD right now. But here's the thing. Yes, Kirk's got a $48 million buyout, but there are some people who want Kirk fired. That's not what I'm advocating for. I'm advocating for Brian Ferentz to move on. I'm not even advocating for him to be fired. He just needs to move on, regardless of how that happens. But what I'm saying is he doesn't have a $48 million buyout. And guess what? He is not. Gary Barta has every right as the AD to fire Brian without Kirk's consent. In fact, Gary Barta, because of the rules on nepotism at the university level, technically, right, Brian is supposed to be reporting to Gary. That's why the article by the Gazette was published, right? Gary was asked. It wasn't a statement, Ryan. It was a question following some meeting to, I don't even know who the group that the meeting was for. But my point is, it was an interview after that meeting, and Gary was asked about him because he is technically the guy who makes decisions. He's supposed to be. I know it's not reality, but that's how it's supposed to be. So my point, I get what you're saying, Ryan. I'm going to let you go. I'm going to move on because
it just comes off so funny because we both know the succession and what's reality. So anyway, thanks. And I have actually game questions for Don Patterson when he comes on. Thanks, Corey.
We're good. Appreciate it, Ryan. All right, let's get to Kyle, and then we've got, it looks like Coach Patterson just now jumped on. So Kyle, what's up, man?
More so a comment observation.
Okay.
The first caller addressed how we'll probably hear a lot about how practice is going well. And I think my concern with that is that Kirk comes from a bit of an old school cut where practice was deemed and believed to be a more controlled environment. Block training, you do 1,000 reps in a row, 10,000 hours is a fancy way of people have said it. And basically, you do enough reps and people think that it'll stick. And Spencer Petras is a good example of this. You hear him last week make comments like, well, my footwork's off, so I just have to focus better. As if somehow, focusing when a D lineman's like in your face is a conscious brain thing. Like he can actually consciously make the decision to like get his footwork correct. And he stares down the same target. He always looks for his tight end. He doesn't feel pressure and moves. This is more than just Spencer. I get that. I'm using him as an example. But it's my comment observation is just basically that's kind of an old way of understanding how people learn. And it's why I don't have hope that obviously he's running out of time, but I don't have hope that a lot of things have the ability to change on the offensive side with practice, is because there is that belief that if we just practice well enough, if we do something in an environment that's super controlled, it will somehow transfer to the game. But that's not actually what the science tells us. Basically, it's just called the constraint-led approach. And you have to put an athlete in an environment that makes them make decisions. And it's really hard. You basically have to figure out how to engage their unconscious brain. And then it's why the easiest way I can explain it is just simply to say it's why players with more experience tend to be better, not because they got their footwork right 15,000 times, but because they played in a game, they found a solution that works and it bypasses their conscious brain. And so it's just to say, I don't really have any hope that things will change. And that's the big reason why, is because it seems like we're a little stuck with like, well, if we just make sure he does 15,000 drop backs and get his footwork right, eventually it'll make it to the game. And that's a very generous understanding. There's a lot of people out there now, scientists who study this stuff, who actually say that actually makes Spencer worse, because he practices only one way to solve a problem. And then when the game breaks down, he only has one solution in his brain and he can't make multiple solutions. And so, I just don't have hope as a coach myself when I watch some of the comments he makes about how they practice and why it's going to work. I believe it won't, because I think the science says that it's wrong.
Kyle, what did you think of Spencer tonight overall?
I feel so frustrated with him. And so I'm not, I'll try not to be overly critical. I don't think he overthrew as often. But I think the offensive line is terrible. Put all those things right, like mark all those things. Just long story short, though, he can't get it done when it matters. Last week in Michigan, he had 3 straight overthrows when it's 10-0. We had the ball at the 40-yard line. That's when it matters, not the fourth quarter. He just can't handle when things aren't perfect. And I know our line stinks, but it's hard for me.
When the pressure is on,
yeah,
he doesn't show up with
I watched with my dad tonight, and my dad just made a comment like, other quarterbacks moving in the pocket. And I just went, please don't tell me that, because I hate watching other college football quarterbacks, because they move one time, they make a pass, and you know what I mean? And he just doesn't do that, and that's okay. I just wish that we'd move on from that, because
and Kyle, there were like every game. Well, I shouldn't say every game, but there were plays today, just like there were plays against Michigan, where he's able to set his feet and he makes nice throws.
Yes, for
Nobody's
sure.
denying that. I love when people say, "That was a nice throw. He had 3 nice passes there in the third quarter."
Agreed.
This is Big Ten football.
Yep.
This is Big Ten football, and you made a perfect. Remember that video that was circulating on Twitter back in the summer that certain people in the media were retweeting just to be able to create buzz when he was
a big arm
yard bomb with no pass rush and no defense on the field.
Yep.
And we all, and well, I shouldn't say we all, because I certainly didn't, but thousands of people that video got tens of thousands of views. And I guess people just bought into it that, oh, this is new Spencer. Nobody doubted Spencer Petras' ability to make plays without a defense, without a pass rush, without a game on the line, right? And so I think that speaks to what you're saying. Kyle, I'm going to let you go, but feel free to, if you've got something for Coach Patterson later, but I appreciate you calling in, and I think you've got you and I are in total agreement as it relates to pressure and Iowa's inability to simulate that effectively during practice. So I appreciate you calling in.
Thanks, Corey.
Thank you, sir. Folks, I always want to say this about the Iowa fan base. This has been frustrating is not even the word to describe this anymore. But right now, and I said this to Coach Patterson after the Iowa State and South Dakota State games, each of those games set records for viewership here on the channel. All right, live concurrent viewership. Right now, between our two channels, and by the way, we're simulcasting this show to From the Hawkeye of the Storm on YouTube and Iowa Football at the Voice of College Football. So shout out to Mark Rogers for making that possible. We're simulcasting on both channels. Combined viewership right now, we've got 845 people on here watching at nearly 11 o'clock at night amidst a 3-3 season in which Iowa just lost 9-6 to Illinois. So first of all, I appreciate everybody being here and supporting the show, because I'd much rather be talking about an Iowa football team that's 6-0 right now, or even 5-1 or 4-2. But I just want to say about the Iowa fan base, you folks are passionate and rabid, and that's why I don't buy into the people that tell me that I need to appreciate what I have as opposed to wanting more, because this fan base is supportive of this program to a point where I believe a lot of coaches, and I'm not taking anything away from what Kirk Ferentz has done, but this is a passionate fan base that I think is sort of a kind of a what's the word I'm trying to think of? It's an indication that this program could succeed with a lot of coaches because it has the fan support. And that was also demonstrated by the fact that every home game was sold out this year, despite the fact that most fans disagreed with Kirk's decision to double down on Brian and make him the quarterbacks coach during the offseason. So you folks are passionate. I applaud you. Thank you for not becoming apathetic, because it doesn't do anything for anybody. But I also understand when you get to the point of apathy. We've got people on hold. We got somebody on the phone line. We got a plethora of callers here in StreamYard. Hang tight, folks. We welcome in now Coach Don Patterson to the show. Coach Patterson, first of all, thank you for being here. I know you would much rather be talking about a victory for Iowa and a team that was now just above 500, frankly. But we have an offense that's sputtering and huge question marks going into the bye, to say the least. But before we get into the macro side of all of this, let's just take a few minutes before we get to our callers to talk about this football game. I know there's a lot to unpack, Don, but where did this game go haywire?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind for me, I got to give Illinois credit. If you would have told me that DeVito was going to be injured at the end of one quarter, they were going to have to play 3 quarters with Sikowski, and their place kicker didn't play at all tonight. It was a backup kicker that hit the 3 field goals. I would have really, really liked our chances. And yet Illinois was still able to overcome the loss of those 2 players. So hats off to them for being able to get it done, being resilient enough to get it done. Several things come to mind for me. We're we are really struggling, to put it nicely, really struggling in the red zone. We've got now, I believe this is our final stats. At the half, I believe they mentioned four touchdowns out of 13 red zone appearances for the season at that point. That was in 5.5 games. I don't know that we made it back to the red zone in the second half, did we? I can't recall. Don't know that we did. Because the field goal was pretty long.
Yeah,
the missed field goal.
Alex Springman in our StreamYard saying once. I believe he's right, because it wasn't off the Quinn. No, not the Quinn Schulte interception. We got down there once.
Okay. Yeah, I don't doubt that we might have been in the high red zone. Let's see.
Don, did you get have you gotten? I haven't gotten a box score. Did you get a box score?
I do. What would you like to know?
Well, I'd like to get the box score. I'm wondering why I don't have it in my email.
Okay. Let me give you some final stats.
Okay.
Rushing yardage, 200 versus 52. You've heard me say before, if you got 100-yard or more margin in your favor, you're very likely to win, 90% to win. If you're in the hole 148 yards, good luck. It's going to be damn near impossible to win the game. There was some sack yardage in there. We gave up 43 yards in sacks. So if you eliminate the sack yardage, the called running plays were worth 215 for Illinois versus our 95. So they still gained us 2-1 as far as being able to run the ball. Totally offense, 316 versus 222. So our defense, I think to hold Illinois to a little over 300 yards is a really solid night. I was really proud of our open field tackling, especially through 3 quarters. It seemed like we faded a little bit in the 4th quarter. They ran through a few tackles as the game went on, but overall we still did an excellent job with the open field tackling. Red zone scoring, 2 out of 3 for Iowa, 3 out of 4 for Illinois. They simply got down there one more time. And, of course, their failure was easy to remember because it was a wonderful interception by Quinn Schulte. Big differential on sacks, 5 versus none. Chase Brown ended up.
Just for the record, you knew that was going to be the case.
Right.
Even though Iowa's front 7 is exceptional, it's not. It's the numbers just say Illinois is actually better, and Iowa's, of course, their pass protection is not good.
Yeah, and Illinois has the luxury of being more likely to be in 3rd and medium or 3rd and short.
And let me. I just said I'm not saying their front 7 is better, but I think no question their front 4 is better at getting to the quarterback than Iowa's.
It appears that way, yes.
Yeah.
But the bottom line, Illinois could rely a little more on the running game than we could. And that's unfortunate. We have to find a way to run the ball more effectively. And maybe we explore new formations, new blocking schemes, whatever we can do to be able to run for more yardage. Because if you can't run for triple digits, you're in trouble. I don't care who you're playing. Excuse me. Chase Brown ran 31 times for 146. On our side, hats off to Sam. 9 catches for 100 yards, a lot of yak yardage. That's the thing that the pros are going to be interested in. He does a good job after the catch, too. Defensively, Jack Campbell with another stellar game, 13 total tackles, 1 fumble recovered. And, of course, that's yeoman effort on covering a punt. Incidentally, that was a wonderful punt also by Torrey. That was 50 yards with good hang time. And you've heard me say before, a lot of punt returners struggle when the ball's up there for 4.8 seconds or 5 seconds. That punt might have had 5-second hang time. It was up there a long time. And, of course, was misjudged by the returner. But hats off to Jack for being down there so that he could recover. And then Quinn Schulte, 9 total tackles, and then the interception on the goal line, which, of course, was a huge play. Incidentally, that before they kicked their winning field goal, they went empty on 3rd, I think it was 3rd and 9. And I said, there's no way in hell they're going to throw it. This has to be Q draw. And sure enough, it was. And it came within a hair, of course, of being a fumble. And they slowed it down, and they made the right call. His elbow was barely on the ground before the ball came out. So I couldn't argue with that. But that's how close the game can be. A matter of a 100th of a second almost would make a difference.
Did
a
you
few
let me
hundred.
just add this question real quick into the mix, Don? Did you think there was a chance when you were watching that on replay, because you were watching the TV copy as well? Was there a chance that you thought that could be upheld, given the fact that it was the call on the field? I agree. It looked conclusive from the one angle that his forearm was down. However, the elbow was not. I know the forearm counts as being down, but the wrist is not. Am I right in saying that the wrist does not count as being down? Right?
They always talk about the elbow. That's a good question, but it makes sense to me if the forearm is down, even if the elbow's not down.
Because I didn't think the elbow. I wasn't sure the elbow was down. I know that now it doesn't really matter, but I was not 100% sure that elbow was actually down.
Well, the ball was a little bit awkwardly possessed also, if you go back and look. It wasn't as if it was flat on the chest. It was one part of it was in contact with the chest. The other end of the ball was sticking up in the air a little bit. So he possessed it, but you're right. There would have been an outside chance. I wasn't sure they were going to uphold the call. I thought they were going to. The announcers, of course, said that's going to be overruled. That is not a fumble. They were pretty decisive in making that call. I thought there was a chance it would be reversed.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, a chance it would be upheld.
Yep.
A chance it would stand, but no such luck. And I couldn't argue with the reversal because it appeared he was barely down. Here's a couple of things that come to mind. We are too predictable with our snap counts. This is the kind of stuff that listeners don't always think about. But one reason we have difficulty in pass protection is because they're teeing off with their pass rush. And so you might say, well, why don't we change up our snap counts more? The problem with that is we have to be sure we can hold our water too, because a lot of false starts, of course, aren't going to help our cause. But it's safe to say as we get deeper into the season, this would be an ideal time to do it with an off week. We've got to make our offensive line understand, not just offensive line, anybody can false start, of course, but shame on a receiver that ever false starts because he's looking at the ball. He shouldn't move before the ball moves. The linemen, of course, have to rely on the snap count. But we need to be able to vary our snap counts more because Illinois was really doing a good job of timing up their stunts and timing up the charge.
This is from I guess a fan who looks at this, and I'm simplifying things, Don, but when I see the blitzer who's timing the rush on multiple occasions, isn't it Spencer's ability? Isn't it his responsibility to kind of recognize that and step back in that situation and not snap the ball? Am I wrong on that? Or
well, if we say the ball is going to be
right in front of your face,
if we say the ball is going to be snapped on one, meaning a snap count of one, then to delay that normal rhythmic snap count would undoubtedly give a false start on our part.
Okay.
So that's the problem with stepping away. The only real solution is to vary the snap count. Sometimes snap it on first sound, sometimes snap it on two, maybe even snap it on three, but do not snap it all day long on one. And it seems like we're probably nervous about our linemen false starting. And that's why with this off week, we can really concentrate on doing a better job in varying our snap counts. It will help our pass protection if we can do that.
Apparently, Spencer Petras made the comment after the game, said that we are improving. Did you see improvement in this game, Don? On anything on offense? I'm just curious.
I don't doubt that we're improving. The only problem is the other team's always improving too. So if you really want to gain on the field, you have to improve at a faster rate than the other team. And obviously there's no proof that indicates we're doing that. I don't doubt that we're improving, but we need to improve faster. And Spencer even said that at the press conference. We need to find a way to improve at a faster rate. If we don't get that done, then we're improving along with everybody else we're playing. So everybody wants to improve, and who are we to say that we're improving more than Illinois or anyone else that's up ahead? I hope Ohio State doesn't improve over this next week because I've seen enough of their improvement that I'm not going to be excited if they're even better next weekend than they were today. I'm sorry, 2 weeks away.
Let me make a positive comment before we get to some. Can we get to some callers? And I told our callers I want to kind of shorten the calls tonight, Don, because I really want to spend time talking to you. But let me just say something positive because I'm accused of being. I've been accused by people of being one of the most negative people out there as far as people who podcast and talk Iowa football. So let me say something positive that is genuine. I think Nico Reganey is playing really good football right now. Maybe his best football as an Iowa wide receiver.
When you know, Corey, I lost you. You froze up there before you made your statement.
Don, I said that I think that Nico Reganey is playing really good football right now. I think he's made some really nice catches.
He's playing like a veteran receiver.
He is, and he didn't last year, Don. And you could argue he didn't the year before that. Really, I think that he's playing the best football of his career. He's playing like he did his freshman year, and I think even better. You summed it up right there. He's playing like a veteran, and he's made, like I said, some catches that I didn't know he was capable of making. And he has made a difference since he's returned from injury.
He's playing like he wants to be sure he has no regrets at the end of the season. Yeah. And he even acknowledged, I think I got a little bit lazy mentally last year. I forget exactly how he said it, but he acknowledged I should have been able to do better last year. And it's obvious he's not going to let that mistake happen again. He's learned from his mistake. So we can count on him. Absolutely.
All right. Let's get to, again, we're going to try to keep our calls somewhat short. If you're new to the show, there is a link in the description below. But we've had a caller who's been on hold for over half an hour on our phone line. Let's get to our caller on our phone line, then we'll get back to StreamYard. Thank you for calling Iowa Postgame with Coach Don Patterson, who's on the line. Hey, Zach, I'm doing as good as you could expect, and appreciate you hanging tight for, 37 minutes. That's right.
I'm not able to hear him, Corey.
Hold on a second, Zach. We're having problems we're having problems hearing you again. Let's see here. Go ahead and say something, Zach. No, we're not getting you on this end. Try through StreamYard. I don't know if the phone line is overwhelmed right now or what, but we're not getting you on StreamYard. Hop on StreamYard and I'll jump you in front of other people. Sorry about that. Zach. All right. So hold up on the phone lines, folks, because for some reason, and it was working as we were coming on, and now it's not working. So we've had some issues over the past week with the phone line, but we're active here on Zoom. Let's get to James, who's been waiting on hold for a long time as well. James, how you doing this evening?
Not too bad, Corey. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Again, considering the circumstances.
I have to say, I thought Spencer showed a lot of up today in the game tonight, but there at the end, I kind of got disappointed when they were running the 2-minute with his sense of urgency. It seemed like it wasn't there.
Well, I'm not quite sure. There's several things we could nitpick on the final drive. Don, do you want to talk about clock management a little bit?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Looking at the last drive, the things that came to mind for me, Spencer, I don't know how much time there was at this point in the game, but clock was under a minute for sure. And you remember the play where Spencer stepped up, he then tucked the ball, and he ran and slid for +1. Obviously, +1 is not worth doing.
Right.
So as he approached the line of scrimmage, he's got to find some place to throw it away. The safe place to throw it away, of course, is to the nearest boundary. But the ball should have been thrown away.
Right.
Or if he's committed to run, then run. Don't slide. You better get all you can, and we'll hope that we get a 15-yard penalty again for somebody hitting you late. That may sound kind of crass, but that's just the reality of where we are. We're in a desperate situation. So you either stay short of the line of scrimmage and throw it away, or you run for all you're worth, and you don't slide because we need every yard we can find. And the more logical thing to do, since Spencer's not going to make too many people miss, when you step up in the pocket, you still need to throw it away. If you can't find someone, throw it away before you cross the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, I thought personally, like, his sense of urgency was like really lacking, and I don't know if it was like the play calls that were getting sent into him or what, but I just felt like highly disappointed at the fact that it seemed like there was no urgency to it at all.
Yeah. Well, let me say this. Let me go back. This is all chronological with my notes, of course. Schulte intercepts on the goal line. Incidentally, let's give credit to Deontay Craig for the tip, because without that tip, we wouldn't have intercepted, I don't believe. So nice job on the part of our D lineman getting his hand up and getting a hand on the ball. Shortly thereafter, and let's face it, that was a huge turn in the game because it left the score at 6-6. We got flagged for delay, and I went back and checked just to be sure. The play left the bench plenty early. For whatever reason, you can see Spencer in the huddle talking a long time to his teammates. We don't know what the play was, of course, because it was blown dead. But we clearly lost track of the clock. And it wasn't the fault of the play caller because the play got into the game plenty early. Matter of fact, the camera's on Brian, and he's not doing any talking at all as the play ticks down from 24 to 23 to 22. In other words, the play's already in. But it took us forever to get lined up, and then we had some motion involved. And next thing you know, we get a silly delay of game, which had never happened. You know, I always used to say a quarterback has to have one eye on the clock at all times. And obviously that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but as it gets late in the play, you have to have a sense that I better see that clock. That's just an unforced error. And then getting back to 2 minute, let's face it, when the clock went, we snapped the ball with 8 seconds left, and we were hoping to run what we used to call squirrel in and lateral. That's one thought. That's an example of a play that has, I don't know, 100 to 1, probably not even 100 to 1 chance of working. I would suggest to you when the ball was snapped with 8 seconds left, our only option is to throw the ball way down the field. At least you could go 4 verticals and hope to hit a seam route that would be worth 25 or 30 yards. Then you can spike it and have a long-range field goal attempt. That's one option. The other option is simply to throw a Hail Mary as far as you can, but the odds are you're still going to be on the field of play. We were well short of the 50, weren't we, at the time? They were maybe the 30, I think.
Yeah.
So some kind of vertical shot, because the odds of executing the exotic, as we call it, when everybody knows, if you're throwing it short, I smell a rat, you know, because that doesn't make sense that you'd be throwing it that short. And so with 8 seconds left, you have no choice but to go vertical, either with a seam route, and you're hoping to hit a big receiver on the run. And even then, of course, he has to be smart enough. If he can't go score a touchdown, he's got to get on the ground because we clearly got a first down at that point. And then if we're lucky, there's 2 or 3 seconds left, and then we can spike the ball and have a chance to kick. We didn't, and you're right. We need a greater sense of urgency too. You know, after that slide, I think it took us a while to get lined up and get the next play snapped. I don't recall what was on the clock when Spencer slid, but that's why it's so important to, if you're in a game like that, especially as the game winds down, you know, as soon as you know that Illinois is in line for a field goal that might break the tie at that point, you better value every last second because it's going to come down to a question of whether you got 10 seconds or 15 seconds or 20 seconds. So every second does matter.
All right, James.
One last thing I wanted to say is I wanted to say hats off to Brett and Illinois for a well-coached game, really, and a well-played game. Like, as much as we want to talk about, you know, where we lacked, you know, everybody still needs to give credit to Illinois and Brett to their bunch because they played a heck of a game, really.
Well, Brett has got that program heading in the right direction. You want to take shots at their offense, a person can do that, but they were down their quarterback, as Don brought out. They were even down their starting kicker, and they ran for plenty of yards. Jace Brown is really good, and I give credit to Art Sitkowski because he did enough to win that football game. I know you don't want to give too much credit to the quarterback there, but I agree with you. Got to give credit to the home team, and like I said, that was a packed house. So kudos to Illinois, but it's going to make this division even tougher moving forward for Iowa. I appreciate the phone call, James.
Yep. Have a good one, Corey.
You as well, sir.
Corey, let me mention another play in the game that I disagree with what happened. They had kicked their field goal to go up 9-6, and you might recall the kickoff I think they purposely, who knows if it was purposely or not, but the ball hit the turf maybe at the 20-yard line or so.
Yeah, why are we taking the knee with our kickoff returner, Don?
Exactly. Gavin fielded the ball. I understand if he would have had difficulty getting a handle on the ball, but he fielded it cleanly, and he ran up the field and he slid down. I'm sure he was told to do that. But I would suggest to you, think about this. The best tacklers on their football team, in most cases, are in their starting lineup. So you do see a lot of backups on cover units, and I would suggest to you that's a chance for a big play. Now, we still have to block some people and create a seam, of course. But my gosh, I think that's a missed opportunity. We didn't even attempt. It would be like Spencer Petras was fielding a kickoff and was sliding. Gavin is not going to fumble the ball. Gavin's got good ball security. I guess you could argue, well, we don't want to lose it. Well, we have a chance to lose it on every snap thereafter because the rush, of course, is teeing off, and there's all kinds of ways in which we might turn the ball over. So I would suggest to you, let's let Gavin have a chance to return it. Let's leave the bench with that kick return unit knowing we got to bust a kickoff return. Imagine how that would have changed the game if we'd just been out to midfield. It would have changed it a lot.
Bellator says I'm in denial. What am I in denial about? Jeez. Okay.
It looks to me like you're in denial.
Oh yeah, you spelled denial wrong. So I who knows what I'm in. Don, let me just say this before we get to our next caller. I know you probably missed the first part of the show, and I just want to let you know you and I have had conversations, but I said at the outside of this show that I feel like, first of all, I think it's time for a coaching change. I'm not asking for you to agree or disagree with that, but I'm telling you there's got to be a change on the coaching staff because this has gotten to a point where I just don't know how you defend not making a change. With that being said, I happen to think we may be headed to a change before the end of this year because we still got, and I'm not saying that Brian, I don't know how that's going to happen. I don't know that Brian's going to walk away or Gary's going to relieve him of his duties, but I just don't know how much worse this can get as far as results. Don, if you had to, I know this is projecting forward and maybe this is putting you on the spot unnecessarily, but does Iowa make a bowl game at this point?
Too early to know. It's hard to tell. You've always heard me say that's why people pay good money to watch is they don't know for sure what's going to happen. I can't tell you that we're going to go into a tailspin. For all I know, we're going to win out. I don't think that's realistic because I'd be shocked if we can beat Ohio State. But stranger things have happened. At least with a sound defense, we have a chance. But more realistically, can we? Let's see, we're 3-3. Is it hard to imagine we can win 3 out of these last 6 games? No, I think we can do that. Can we win 4 or even 5? Yeah. I don't know that we can win all 6. I think the best we could hope for is to win 5 out of 6. And I say that knowing that even if we upset Ohio State, that doesn't mean Minnesota or Wisconsin or Purdue are going to lay down either. And it's a challenge it's going to be a challenge to produce a winning record. I'll say that. It's not going to be easy to be 7-5 because we're going to have to beat a couple of teams that are probably going to be favored over us to be able to do that. Who are we going to be favored against from this point forward? I don't know. I don't think we'll be favored.
Northwestern is an absolute disaster. Northwestern got absolutely slaughtered by a Wisconsin team that got slaughtered by Illinois last week, and that's now without their head coach.
Right. It looks good to play to play Northwestern in Kinnick. That looks, and let's not sit here and say that's because we all know that Northwestern has an annoying habit of playing well against Iowa. But it's hard to imagine we're going to lose that game. I don't think our guys are going to let that happen. But the bigger question, can we go to Purdue and win? Don't we have to go to Minnesota this year? Or do they come to us? I think we have to go up there. Now, Purdue beat them in the Twin Cities, so we certainly have a chance to beat them. But, again, they run the ball well. And if you're getting out rushed by 100 yards, then good luck. Today we were +2 on turnovers, and we still lost, which gives you an idea of how important it is to be able to run the football.
Okay. Before we get to our next call, Neil, good reminder for everybody. If you're here, we've got almost 900 people in here between the two channels. Please scroll down real quick and hit the little like button, the thumbs up button if you haven't done so. That helps everything, helps our channel, supports our channel, even if you're not able to donate to the channel or sponsor the channel or give in some other way. That at least is a sign of support. So please do that if you're appreciating the content. Please hit that little like button. Let's get to OS for Hawks, who's been on hold for quite some time. Thank you for calling Iowa Postgame with Coach Don Patterson.
Yep. Good evening, guys. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear, sir.
Couple things. I just wanted to talk about execution, and I want to talk about a few specific plays. There was a wheel route to the Gavin Williams. He never looked for the ball. The ball was thrown, hit him in the back. Nico Reganey was going on a crossing pattern, wide open, would have been a first down. We missed that.
I think it was.
We
failed.
Yeah,
I'm not going to argue over whatever the term is, but I think it was thrown at his feet.
Yeah. Well, whatever. I'm just saying we failed to execute.
Right.
Two times blitz is not picked up. Monty Pottebaum whiffed on a blitz, and it blew us up. We ended up in long yardage. Failed to execute. LaShawn Williams whiffed on another blitz. We failed to execute. Down on the goal line, Spencer had a chance to hit LaShawn Williams on that little flare route. Probably could have been a touchdown. The defender got into him, but he had enough time. He should have put the ball where it was.
Don, I'm not going to cut you off, OS for Hawks. I'm going to keep you on the line here. But, Don, can you comment on the throw to LaShawn Williams down in the red zone where Spencer, he's getting pressured, but, I mean, it was – I don't know how you excuse that throw at this level anymore. Those are the throws that just make me tear my hair out. You know what play I'm talking about, correct?
Yeah, it was a naked to the left, as I recall.
Yes.
We faked right and rolled left. One thing you got to realize, at least I think Spencer knows this, when you run naked, if you're right-handed, you run naked to the left, you need to compensate. We used to actually tell our quarterbacks, it's okay to drop down to a three-quarter delivery. In other words, you don't have to throw quite so much over the top, simply because if you do throw your normal motion over the top, you're probably going to throw it behind him a little bit. That ball was a little bit behind him, as I recall. It was not the easiest chance. It wasn't out in front, right? It was, I think, a little bit behind him. So it was in an awkward play. To LaShawn.
No, I got thrown at his feet.
A little bit behind.
Oh, two different balls then. There was another play where the ball was thrown a little bit behind him. That's the naked I'm thinking of.
Talking about the throw that's a 5-yard, where Spencer's rolling. I think he was rolling left, and the defender's coming at him, and he throws down. I mean, it was 2 yards short of LaShawn Williams at his feet.
Yeah, in the dirt. Yeah, there was a guy a little bit up in his face. I know what I was going to say on that play, and Spencer said the same thing. Spencer said, I think I came out a little bit too flat, meaning I didn't give enough ground after the fake. I should have come out with more depth, which would have given him more separation from the edge rusher. So Spencer acknowledged if I'd have come out with more depth, I would have had enough separation from the edge rusher that I could have probably made. Getting back to Gavin's play, did you see what happened right afterward? The caller's right. The ball was thrown, and Gavin wasn't anywhere near prepared for the ball. But I did notice when Spencer went to the bench, Brian was pretty animated and talking to him. So my guess is Brian was saying to Spencer, why did you throw the ball so soon? My guess is that was supposed to be a true wheel route, and you need to give a wheel route a little more time to develop. So that's my guess. I don't think he was under pressure that time. I think he just threw the ball a little bit earlier than what Gavin expected. And I'm basing that on the conversation that Brian had with Spencer. It appeared that Brian was upset with Spencer and not upset with Gavin.
Yeah. My whole point is this all goes back to execution. And my point is that the offense is not executing. The offensive line is not executing. Spencer in key situations is not executing. And one of the callers earlier tonight talked about, under pressure, Spencer doesn't perform. Well, we all know people that are great in practice and can't perform under pressure. And we all know people that are gamers. And I'm sorry, it doesn't seem to be that Spencer is a gamer. And I don't want to, I'm not trying, the kid's a great kid. That's not my point.
That doesn't matter anymore for this conversation.
Yeah. To go forward, my whole point is I've worked in business my whole life. If you are responsible for a whole bunch of things and you are not performing and you're the head of that, who's responsible for that?
Well,
the head of the business or the coach. And we are having big problems on offense. It's been going on for a whole time, and we all know where that responsibility lies. And that's all I have to say. I'll let somebody else talk. Have a great evening, and I love your shows. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate the call.
Let me say this, Corey. I did notice that our AD was down on the bench during the game. So to Gary's credit, he's trying to get a handle on what's really happening during the game.
Ben Brunt brings that up here in the chat. Several shots of Barta on the sideline during the game. Is that normal for him? Or do you think he's making a point of observing the coaching? That's a good question, Don. Do you have an answer?
To be honest with you, I think he's always down there. I've noticed him down there for home games too. But maybe now he's a little more attentive than he would be for a normal game. I don't know. That's a question for our AD, not for me.
I want to give a shout out to Lemansky, the super chat. Thank you, Lemansky. He says, modern football, if my memory serves, Brett is -2 in turnover margin tonight and still gets the W in his second year with the better team. Yes, I said it, the better team. And Destiny Pirate, thank you, Lemansky, for the super chat. He says, this is a question of Iowa and loyalty, which has been the bedrock of the Hayden Fry-Ferentz era. These are two separate eras, by the way, Destiny Pirate. Should we not be who we are? Illinois still felt lucky. We will weather the storm, but for how long? Sentiments of a lot of fans. We welcome now Alex to the show. Alex, you've been on hold for quite a while. Thank you for being patient. What do you got for Coach Don and I?
Well, I'll try to keep this quick, obviously. Oops, sorry. I'll try to keep this quick, obviously, trying to get to other callers and keeping this short. A couple other stats. Don brought up just how undisciplined we were for penalties. I made a comment of that earlier in the year against, I can't remember which team, that there was some questionable unsportsmanlike calls. The one where I think it was on 77. I can't think of who that is, but he gave the Illinois guy a slight shove. Like the guy didn't fall down or anything. He got an unsportsmanlike. That was in the first half. And then when Spencer got hit when he slid when he ran for, I don't know, like 6 yards, and he slid and got hit. And then they thought it was a fumble, so Luke Lachey tackled the guy, and he got called for unnecessary roughness or unsportsman. I thought that was a little weird, and then it not being targeting I thought was a bad call. The other thing too, Don, you can probably comment on this, is I thought he should have been pulled out, at least for a play or two, just say, hey, man, you're good. But he's seen the game, and the caller commented that he didn't look great in that 2-minute drive at the end of the game. And I thought, I thought he should have been, evaluated, because he got hit pretty hard, and after the hit, he was on the ground holding his head, or at least holding his helmet, saying that he got hit pretty hard and got, probably dazed and confused. So I was surprised he stayed in the game for, I think they should have pulled him out for 1 or 2 plays, if not a series, and just said, hey, we just want to make sure you're okay before we send you back out there.
Yeah, you might recall there was a long stoppage while they reviewed the tape. And I don't know what happened during that stoppage, but I suspect that Spencer went over to the bench and they confirmed that he was okay. I'm not sure. It didn't cross my mind that it might have been an acting job on his part. I wasn't sure. Now, that shoulder did hit him with a lot of force, so I don't doubt that he had his bell rung, as we say. Whether or not he should have come out of the game, I can't imagine that the trainers didn't check him out, even if it was for only a minute or two then. And let's not forget, that was in the first half. So I don't think that affected his functioning at all in the second half, unless he had
No, I think that was in the second half. I think he got hit in the second half. Yeah, because I had that in my notes. In the second half is when he got the targeting, or when the targeting should have happened. That's what I have in my notes. Is that happened?
Yeah, I think you're right. I got the wrong foul. I think you're right. Maybe that was second half, wasn't it? Let me see. Third quarter, maybe we were going to the north, right? So it was third quarter. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, here it is. Third and 2. Spencer flushes for plus 16. Here's one thing that mystified me about the play. They decided, of course, it was not targeting. It was a late hit. And, of course, we had a foul called on 85, they said. And they even commented, it makes sense that Lachey might take exception to them hitting his quarterback. But the other foul, and we don't have any idea who, maybe Gary Barnum knows, but the other foul was on an assistant coach on the bench. Remember that?
Yeah. Well, they call it. Well, what happened with Luke Lachey is the guy picked up the ball because they thought it was a fumble, and Luke Lachey tackled the ball carrier, and that's why he got called for it.
That's why he got fouled, but that still doesn't explain the foul on the bench. That's my point.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm just saying that's why Luke Lachey got called for the unsportsmanlike. But, yeah, I would imagine it would probably been Brian getting out of the field because his
the only thing we know for sure is it wasn't Kirk because they identified him as an assistant coach.
Yeah. But just continue on quickly. The one thing I think maybe one criticism I had for the defense, and this happened in I believe most in the first half, was Illinois was 3 for 3 on fourth downs, and just the inability to get off the field. And actually, that what led to one of Illinois' field goals was when Illinois went. I think it was 2 for 2 on fourth down, and then they kicked the field goal to go up 3-0.
Let me comment on first possession again. Illinois takes the ball. They drive downfield. They kick a field goal on their first possession. Of course, we match that. We kick a field goal on our first possession. But getting back to their first drive kind of reminded me too much of Michigan's first drive. I don't know how many plays, but I do know this. There were 6 first downs on that drive. Those 6 plays were worth 38 yards. They were worth 6.3 on average. They did include a couple of incomplete passes even. But the point is, +7, +18, +5, +8, those are all very positive plays. Or to look at it that way, they were 4 for 6 with positive plays on first down. One of them produced a first down all by itself, and the other 3 set up second and short or second and medium. So obviously, we got to find ways to get off the field, and that means primarily, obviously, it's a problem if it's 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2. So we need to find a way to prevent them from even getting into 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, and that might mean you have to dial up a few more stunts. I'm talking about run stunts, not pass rush stunts, designed to hit them in the head and make it at least 3rd and medium rather than 3rd and short.
Yeah. And then just a couple more quick things. And Corey, you might have mentioned this before. I don't think Iowa should ever run shotgun without a running back if Spencer Petras is the quarterback, because he's no threat. He's no threat of running the ball. I mean, we've seen him run the ball more this season than we did last season, but when you see him in a naked gun, it's just like, okay, then the defense can pin their ears back. It's like, and that kind of leads into my other thing is he has no pocket presence. He got sacked. The last sack he took in the game, the guy was on the ground and he crawled towards his ankles and he just fell down. Now, I know Nate Stanley, I remember one time when it was against Ohio State, guy had him wrapped around one of his legs and he just caught the ball and hooked it towards T.J. Hawkins and got the touchdown. Nate Stanley doesn't have that. And the problem with there's no pocket presence. He's no threat to run. Is Alex Padilla the answer? Well, I don't know, but it's if you don't have a good O-line, at least you have a quarterback that has some pocket presence to move around. And then the last thing I'll say, and then I'll get off, was that, and the first caller had made a comment on it, and was when that Spencer Petras threw that interception, he's talking to Spencer on the sideline, and he starts laughing and smiling. I'm just like, why are you smiling for? And there's someone made a comment like, well, he's trying to calm him down, but it's like, you got to know the situation. You can calm a guy down, but if you're on the sidelines laughing and smiling, it's a horrible look. It absolutely looks horrible. And
I didn't notice that same thing. I don't know how much time was left, but there wasn't a lot of time left, right?
It was like a minute. It was a minute 30 left, and Iowa still had all 3 timeouts. But
And it was right before Illinois turned the ball over to us for one last attempt.
Let me just ask because I didn't see that, and Alex, you're the second person to bring it up. Don, you saw it.
Yeah, it does exist.
Okay, so now that we've got confirmation, that kind of ticks me off. To be quite frank, without even seeing it, that kind of just riles me up even more here. An hour and 50 minutes into the show, what the heck are we smiling about, Don?
I don't know.
I saw that, and I'm not a violent person by any means, but I
good.
Like I jumped up and I'm just like, I was so angry when I saw that. Like it was probably I was angry watching this entire game.
Okay, so let me just get straight. Was it Petrus or Brian or both that were smiling and laughing?
Brian was smiling and laughing when he was talking to Petrus. And
so my question is, Don, you're a former head coach. I'm not asking you to speak out what to do about that or if he should do anything about we're blowing it out of proportion. Don, what would you do when you were at Western Illinois if you had a head coach that you saw on a replay after the game in a situation like that was laughing or smiling, even if it was about something else that the TV viewers didn't know about? How would you handle that situation as a head coach?
Well, at the very least, I would pull him aside and say, rather than embarrass him in front of the staff and simply explain that is absolutely unacceptable. There's nothing funny about the situation we're in. Coach Fry was this way. If it was a tight situation in a game, if he even saw a smile on a player's face, he would call him on it. He would say, I don't know what's so funny. He might say that to a player. Of course,
go ahead.
Players shouldn't be held to the same standard as the coach, I guess. I'm not sure why. Who knows what the discussion was about, but I have to admit I did notice that it was a smile, or maybe even it appeared to be at least a smile, if not a chuckle about something that happened. Who knows what that might have been.
Well, and when I saw that said to me that this is a guy who does not fear for his job. It means he feels like he has total immunity. And that's, I think, what pissed me off. The last thing I'll say is that this defense is great, but this Iowa offense actually makes it worse. And my reasoning behind that is that a team like Illinois, who heavily relies on Chase Brown in that running game, is that when Iowa is a team that if they can go up, and then Don, maybe you can speak on this for an offensive coordinator side, is that like a team like Illinois, who's a very run heavy and they rely heavily on that run with Chase Brown, that when you go up by 2 scores later in the game, your playbook gets shorter and shorter. So your defense can now, know that like, okay, we know what they're kind of going to do. So we don't have to, try to guess of like, is this going to be an inside zone, or is it going to be a toss sweep play, or is it going to be a screen pass out to the flat? If Iowa's offense is able to score touchdowns, get up by 2 scores, Illinois' playbook shortens up so much more. So then defense can pin their ears back and say, okay, we're going to put it on our secondary, who's really good. And Riley Moss got beat a couple times today. He had a couple good plays, forced that one fumble. But yeah, I just wanted to hear what Don's thought on that was. But thanks again for taking my call.
Appreciate it, Alex. Any thoughts?
Yes. Tell me again what the question was. My head's spinning. What specifically was the question?
My head's spinning faster than your head's spinning, Don. We got to most of Alex's questions, but I'm dealing with
I must have hit the overload button there on that last one. I'm not sure.
Sorry, Alex. We both zoned out there for a second.
I know he was talking about if we could play it from in front, then that limits their playbook, and it's a little easier to zero in on what they might do. Here's a problem that comes to mind, and I didn't really think about it. I knew that it might be a problem, and I didn't really realize how much of a problem it was as the game played out. But in the press conference, this is not my opinion. This is what Spencer said. Spencer said Illinois was 80%, and maybe this is just what they were going into the game, but I think it held up tonight. He said they were 80% man-free and 20% cover 2. And when I heard that, I knew they played a ton of man-free, a lot of man coverage. And Corey, you've heard me say before, if somebody wants to play man coverage against you, that gives them an obvious opportunity to load the box, right? And we all know what I mean by that. They can outnumber you near the ball, which is going to mean there's going to be a free tackler somewhere in the box, because you can't block them all unless you involve the quarterback as a runner. And we know we don't want to do that on a designed play. So here's my point. If they were that high a percentage of man coverage, we should have had more man beaters than we certainly showed tonight. A lot of our routes were a lot of good outside throws, a lot of out routes, a lot of comebacks, a lot of nakeds, things like that. But when I talk about man beaters, Corey, you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about rub routes more ways than you can even imagine. And we didn't show a lot of rub routes tonight. You've seen us run a rub route just for the little flat throw there, like we had on 4th down against Michigan. But I'm talking about if you really put your thinking cap on, there's a lot of possibilities on rub routes. And let's face it, you need to find a way to manipulate your formation so you get a mismatch with one particular receiver. Maybe you want Laporta against a certain guy. Maybe it's Bruce against a slower corner. Maybe that's the best matchup for us. But you better really work long and hard to come up with good mismatches and come up with rub routes that can give your receivers a chance to free up, because that's how you make big plays. You catch the ball and you run because the guy manned up on the receiver that just caught the ball is the only one that even knows where the ball is, because the other guys they're covering on individual receivers, of course. So we didn't do a good job you need to defeat, if they want to play man free and pack the box, how are you going to defeat it? It's going to be hard to defeat it by running the ball down their throat because they got too many tacklers. So about all you can do is scare them out of man-free coverage. How do you do that? With a lot of routes that are designed to defeat man-free coverage.
But Don, didn't you and I talked about this heading into the game, that they were going to play a lot of man-free. That's kind of what they do, right?
Yeah, that's what they want to do.
So again, well, I'm just trying to figure out why that wasn't.
It's all water under the bridge now. And I think if it ties back to anything, Corey, it ties back to, you've heard me say before, be committed. If you're trying to figure out a way to make your team improve faster than other teams, be committed to spending extra time game planning and coming up with all kinds of ideas that they haven't seen, because those are clearly the ones that have the best chance.
And the comment from Alex, I just put it up on the screen. So he clarified what he said that we both zoned out on, Don. Iowa offense is making Iowa's defense worse, because if Iowa can score points, it limits Illinois' playbook because they are run heavy. Does that make sense to you, Don?
Yeah, that's true. You're making them play in a way you don't want to play. They would prefer to run the ball and stay ahead of the chains and keep you off the field. So, yeah, if we could have a 2-touchdown lead on Illinois, they would struggle to come back just like we struggle to come back.
Okay, a couple things here. We got people waiting in the chat. I didn't want to miss super chats earlier. I got somebody said I'm missing super chats. I'm not trying to. I got them saved here. We're going to get to them. Just trying to get up to speed and not have people wait and hold for an hour. Lemansky says, appreciate the super chat, Lemansky. Bless you, Corey and Don, for doing this show. You are appreciated and helpful. Still a fan. I owe it to the effort on D and special teams. Appreciate that, Lemansky. And Andy Unsicker, hopefully I'm pronouncing your last name correctly. Appreciate you becoming a premium member. As I mentioned earlier, if you'd like to follow in Andy's footsteps, become a premium subscriber by clicking the join button next to From the Hawkeye of the Storm if you're watching on this channel. If you're watching on the Iowa channel, of course, you can still donate to Mark Rogers' work. And make sure you note when you donate via Venmo, PayPal, Cash App that it's for the Iowa channel. But if you're watching through the From the Hawkeye of the Storm channel here on YouTube, you can donate. Venmo, Cash App, PayPal in the description. And of course, you can become a premium subscriber by clicking the join button. So again, thank you to Andy for being the newest member of our channel. Elsman57 with a super chat says, sorry, but we've tolerated enough of Brian's incompetence and Kirk's shameless nepotism. Pay the $48 million buyout and throw in an extra $1 million if he leaves tonight. First of all, just as a reminder, I read every super chat as long as it's not vulgar. I read it because it's a super chat. So I appreciate the super chat. Eisman, I'm sorry, I said Elsman. Eisman57, appreciate that and can understand your frustration. Screenwriting Mentor, super chat from Screenwriting Mentor. Thank you for that. Will the media actually hold KF to the fire this week about their performance, or is it going to be business as usual? Thank you for the super chat, sir or ma'am. Eisman57 back with this one says, I love Don, but if he believes we showed improvement tonight, I'd hate to see what regression looks like. Would you like to comment on that, Don?
You heard me say, who am I to argue that we didn't show slight improvement? The only problem is Illinois improved from last weekend also. You follow me? It's a question of whether or not you can improve more than the other team.
You know, it's hard not to improve from
Right.
South Dakota State and what they did. But, boy, this was pretty close to South Dakota State-esque. Don, just in case, I didn't know if you know this, Don, but we didn't score a touchdown tonight. Did you know that?
Yeah, let's be aware that I think in 4 home games, they've given up a total of 15 points. Isn't that true? Virginia got 3. Chattanooga was shut out. I'm not sure who else played there, but let's not forget that they're an outstanding defense. I don't want to unfairly criticize our guys because they were going up a really good defense. The good news, I guess, if there is any good news, Ohio State's defense is not as good. The bad news is we got a prolific offense we've got to slow down in 2 weeks.
Well, did Ohio State play today?
Yes.
Who did they play?
Michigan State.
That's right, and they beat them bad. The numbers actually say Ohio State's defense is pretty darn good, Don.
I think it's improved, yes, but I don't know that it's as good as Illinois.
I bet you it's every bit as talented. I bet you it's every bit as talented.
I don't think it's as well coached then because the results aren't quite as good. Ohio State's been able to outscore people for a long time, and this new defensive coordinator at Ohio State has given them a chance to show improvement, but they're not quite as lofty in numbers as what Illinois has come up with.
So appreciate the super chat from Eisman57. James H. Did not forget your super chat, sir. Thank you for the donation. So wanted to say, I agree. I think it's time to move on from Brian Ferentz. Would gladly take Ken O'Keefe back, and the O-line definitely needs improvement. Thank you for the super chat, James. Vital transformation with the super chat. How could anybody blame Petrus at this point? Is this the worst offensive line ever? Could Lamar or Cam even scramble away when defenders are crushing them or 5 inches from crushing them in 2 seconds?
You want to take that one on?
Well, I mean, Don, we've been saying that since last year that you and I have been critical of the quarterback position, but I think some fans do place way too much blame on that position. But I don't know how else to put it. I've said it a million times. There are so many issues with the offense right now. I mean, it's quarterback play, Don. It's line play. I'm not gonna dance around it. It's play calling. What are we doing running? I call them trick plays, right? Are they exotics? What are we running exotics when we finally get into field goal range? We did the one time we get back to the 45-yard line, and I don't blame Drew Stevens one bit. That's his first miss of the season on the left hash. I wish he'd made it. I think he'll make it next time. I think you can't expect perfection from your freshman kicker. But that was all because we ran a dumb exotic where what was the play? What was the play to Nico?
It was a reverse. We ran a reverse. We lost 9 yards on a reverse.
It was a weird looking reverse, Don.
Well, the ball started right and it would reverse back to the left. And they had a guy up the field. Here's my point. If you're in the red zone and thinking about a reverse, you better be confident that there's not going to be a wide rusher coming from the other side of the field, because if he's a wide rusher, he's going to be in perfect position to play the reverse. You call it when there's nobody rushing up the field on the backside.
What was the other exotic that we ran down there? Wasn't there another quote-unquote exotic? I don't know, maybe you wouldn't call it that, but wasn't there another play earlier in the game that lost a bunch of yardage on what was it?
Maybe you're thinking about here was a killer, was the dead ball foul on Bo Stevens. We ended up with a field goal out of that, but this is what's a killer. Think about this. We had 1st and goal at the 5. That was after the fumble caused by Riley, right? Recovered by Seth.
Right.
1st and goal at the 5. This is really telling. 1st down at the 5, we run naked. And I forget how they played it. It was thrown incomplete some way or another. But the comment I made, as I wrote it down, naked, ... no confidence in the running game. first and goal at the 5, we don't think we can run the ball. We got 4 downs, or at least we got 3 downs. Clearly, we might kick it on fourth and goal at the 2, but we didn't even attempt to run on first down or second down. I can't remember what happened on second down.
Don, I have one for you. How about what about running the ball, calling a run play on 3rd and goal from the 14? How about that one? Can we talk about that one for a second?
Well, we simply were content with 3 points.
Yeah. Why are we content with 3 points? 3rd and goal from the 4. We can't get 14 yards. We can't run a play. We don't have a play to the end zone from the 14.
Well, believe me, I wouldn't want to have to call a play on 3rd and goal at the 14 either, because there aren't many good plays.
Don, would you have ran the ball or passed the ball on that play?
The way what was the score at the time? Was it 6-3? Maybe the 3 tied it up, I think.
Okay, so hold on a second.
It
I'm
had
not
to be.
denying the fact that you kick a field goal. Why are we running it on 3rd down? I'm not asking you to go for it on 4th down. Why are we running it on 3rd down? What's the point of running it on 3rd down from the 14?
You froze up, Corey.
What is the point of running the ball on 3rd down and goal at the 14?
Because we're not sure that there'll be a 4th down unless we run a secure play.
So you're saying we're playing in fear of an interception, in fear
Well,
of a turnover.
we're playing to tie the game up. I mean, it was probably sometime in the 3rd quarter. When did we tie the game up? Wasn't it 3rd quarter?
That wasn't in the 3rd quarter. That was in the first half.
Was it 6-6 at the half? Okay. It was 2nd quarter then, because we know we scored a touchdown. I'm sorry. I shouldn't mention the touchdown word tonight, should I? Since no one did. We know this. We matched their field goal in our first possession. So before the half, we did kick a field goal. That's the drive you're talking about. We ran the ball on 3rd and goal. I didn't even write it down because I wasn't shocked that they did it, because they were thinking we're already in decent field goal range. Let's pick up a few yards winning play. They won't expect it. But really what we're saying is we're just trying to tie the game up. And we've already proven we have difficulty in the red zone.
Don, hold on. This is first quarter. Let me just clarify. This is first quarter. I was down 3-0 in the first quarter. Let me run through the series for you, okay? They have 1st and goal at the 7. Petras throws for a 1-yard loss to Sam Laporta. Then they get a false start on Tyler Ellsbury.
So this is before our first kick, you're saying?
No, incorrect. No, it's Illinois is up 3-0 at this point.
Well,
I'm sorry, I misread that. So 1st and goal at the 7, LaShawn Williams runs for a 1-yard loss. Then 2nd goal at the 8, Petras short middle to Laporta for a 1-yard loss. So then it's
can you
3rd
tell me
goal,
you're sure it's
9.
You're sure it's 3-0 right now for all these plays?
3-0 Illinois at this point.
Okay, so that's our opening drive then.
False start.
We scored on our opening drive.
Okay.
So you're saying on our first drive,
I
we're in red
understand.
zone.
3rd and goal at the 9, we have a penalty on Ellsbury, and then on 3rd and 14, we hand off to Gavin Williams for a gain of 0. On 3rd and goal at the 14 in the first quarter on our first drive, we hand off to Gavin Williams for a 0-yard gain.
Are you sure you're not talking about dead ball on Bo Stevens? It was Ellsbury, you said?
I'm staring at the play-by-play report here, Don.
I got you.
I'm just telling you on 3rd and I know I said it like 5 times now, but on 3rd and 14, 3rd and goal at the 14, we ran the ball
on our first drive.
On our first drive.
Yeah. Well, it goes to show that I wasn't surprised that we ran the ball, because it didn't shock me that we did that, simply because 3rd and 14 on what yard line again? 3rd and goal at the 14?
Goal at the 14.
3rd and goal at the 14. Well, I think we were fearful. We're always talking about playing to win or playing not to lose. We were fearful that we might turn the ball over, obviously. And people might say, well, how hard would it be to not throw an interception? Well, let's not forget that they might decide they want to. On 3rd and 14, it's not hard to imagine that they might dial up a good pass rush. And let's face it, if Spencer's blindsided, the ball might go flying. If you want to think like a pessimist, you would say they'd pick it up and run 85 yards for a touchdown. I guess the point is the odds of us being able to convert on 3rd and goal at the 14 are slim, even if the most optimistic Iowa fans thinking about it, regardless of what play we run. It's not easy for anyone to score on 3rd and goal from the 14. So it didn't shock me that we ran the ball, simply thinking we're going to match their field goal, and then we'll go from there.
Playing with fear. Playing with fear.
Well, it's clear that we don't have great confidence in our ability to protect a quarterback. That's justified.
I just want to clarify. You're not defending the decision. You're just saying you understand.
I wasn't surprised, right?
You were not surprised. So anybody, because I know what's going to happen here. Somebody's either going to rip me for hanging on this, or they're going to rip you, Don, for not being critical enough of it. But I don't think we're arguing or disagreeing.
Would I call a run play? No, I might call a screen pass.
I'm just saying we don't have a simple throw to the. We don't have a play from the 14-yard line to the end zone. I mean, we're playing. Why don't we just, when we get in field goal range from now on, Don, the moment we get in field goal range, let's just take a knee. Let's just take a knee.
Well, now, wait a minute. Think about this. If you're playing defense, are you worried about us throwing the ball short of the goal line? Or at least it's going to be thrown near the goal line, right? If you got to convert, why would you throw it 5 yards downfield, right? What are the odds of an out route? Slim and none, right? Not going to get you anything other.
I understand that it condenses the field. I get that.
All I'm saying is that a defense is going to do a better job of defending the goal line, knowing that if you're going to throw, to be short of the goal line is still another opportunity to line up and kick the field goal. So it's not hard to imagine that they would have better coverage in the end zone if you're out on the 14-yard line. That's all I'm saying.
And I understand that, and I'm not trying to say that it would have been an easy conversion, but
Right.
Iowa fans are tired of this playing with fear and
what we're saying,
everything we do.
well, here's what you're saying. What's wrong with calling a play where we have one or more receivers in the end zone and then be able to rely on our quarterback to show good judgment?
Right, exactly.
And throw the ball to the guy that deserves it the most.
In the fact that the fact that the coaching staff doesn't have enough confidence in a 5th-year quarterback, or whatever he is, 4th, 5th-year quarterback, to make a decision in that situation and not force a ball to where, I mean, even if he takes a sack, Don, say he takes a sack for a 10-yard loss, you still that's still only a 41-yard field goal for Drew Stevens. So
what about a blindside sack where the ball comes out? Because that's happened too.
Sure, yeah, we can. I could walk across the street and a car could come down the street and hit me, Don. So I guess.
You use that because you've heard me use it.
Oh no, I did. I forgot you used it. All right, we've got some callers waiting on hold. I know I stayed on that for a long time, so I apologize to people who.
Your point's well taken, Corey. We're cautious with our play calling.
That's understatement. Let's get to Vincent, who's been on hold for quite a while. Vincent, welcome to the show.
Hey, Corey. Hey, Don. How we doing?
Doing well.
All right.
Hey, Don, I share your sentiment. I know what you're talking about you're both right. Corey, I get your perspective on that's what we're doing on 3rd and 14 is running the ball. And Don saying, yes, that's exactly what we're doing because in essence, we don't have confidence in our QB, our O-line, or our players to make plays. You don't want to give up 3 points by having a mistake happen down there in the red zone. And that pretty much answers that question. You don't want to have some kind of quirky turnover where you're giving up 3 points that are kind of a gimme. So yes, should we try? Because Iowa fans want to see that. Yes, absolutely. But from a coaching perspective, and Don, I get you. You don't want to have those 3 points taken away by a goof, if that makes sense.
Right.
Don, I'm just going to ask you a point. Or go ahead, Corey. I'm sorry.
Vincent, I was just going to say real quick, and that's the problem. The fact we're all in agreement on that. That's the problem.
Nope,
we need to look at ourselves in the mirror and say, this is ridiculous that we don't even have confidence in our senior quarterback to throw to the end zone on 3rd and goal at the 14. That's what my point is. Go ahead.
Or to choose not to if it's covered. Right?
Right, exactly.
Right.
You've heard me say also,
and
Corey,
I'm with you.
A really safe place to throw the ball in general is the back of the end zone because a lot of defensive teams do not defend all the way to the back of the end zone. So it's a fairly safe place to throw. If you're looking for a receiver along the end line and he's covered, then you simply set it over his head. And then we line up and kick the ball.
Right.
Yeah, and as frustrating as the season as it's been, Corey, I'm on board with you. You figure hell, what do we have to lose? Why are we not at least attempting or trying to reach the ball or get the ball to the end zone? And we're just not doing that at all. So no, I share your frustration. Trust me, I get it. I certainly wish we would see that too, but it's just not going to happen. It's not within the framework of Kirk ball or Ferentz ball, as I like to phrase it. But anyway, I just had a couple pointed questions for both of you guys. First one, Coach Patterson, is for you. I know, and I'll respect how you answer this because I know you always try to stay vanilla or be respectful of those. With you being a head coach in your coaching past, if you're the head coach of this team, do you make a change with your OC? And I mean today,
First off, I'm
you
trying
make
to
a
figure out
change.
what your statement meant that I was always stating vanilla. Because all this time I thought
you're always respectful. No, I know you're always respectful. You have relationships within the Iowa program. You don't want to, have anything come off, I guess in any kind of negative light. But just from a coaching perspective, if you're head coaching this team, is Brian out?
Well, I'll say this. I coached for 37 years, 21 of which were with Coach Fry. And in 37 years of coaching, I don't remember an occasion where I do recall an occasion where a coach lost his play calling duties. At Connecticut, there was a period of time when more than one offensive coach called plays. I thought there was a good reason for it. Our offensive coordinator was a former offensive line coach. Maybe this is hitting too close to home, I guess. And I think while he was an outstanding offensive line coach, he simply had never called plays before. So no shock to you that it might not go that well. And as a result of that, he did lose his play calling duties. He was still the offensive coordinator. He simply didn't call the game. He had everything to do with formulating the game plan, but the play calling duties were given to a guy named Coach P.
Hold on a second. I got to stop for a second because I've seen this now multiple. I saw somebody say this earlier in the chat, but I just want to put this out there because now I've seen two people say it in the chat. So I'm going to assume this is the truth. And I honestly am having a hard time even putting it on here because I'm laughing internally and not because I think it's funny, because I think it's absolutely insane. Zach states that David Eicholt of 247 Sports asked Kirk if he will consider a coaching change during the bye week, and Kirk Ferentz answered, quote, "We won 10 games last year. I don't know if you're aware of that," end quote. I don't need a comment, Don. I don't need a comment. Vincent, I got you. I'm at a loss. I'm at a complete loss, Don. I can't.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say.
Apparently, we don't have all of our players back.
Well, we don't.
That's how a father would answer that question.
The offense was 123rd out of 130 teams last year, Don.
Right.
This is the point. This is the whole point. All right, folks. This is the problem, is that we have an administration and a head coach who does not evaluate each unit individually as it should be evaluated. That's the problem. Go ahead, Vincent.
No, I couldn't agree more. I know Kirk it's his son. I mean, how do you answer that question? Am I going to fire my own son? No, I'll take all the bullets in the media. I'll take the criticism. Even though I know that maybe things aren't getting done. From what I see Kirk chewing more gum on the sideline and watching the game as a spectator than I do actually coaching. And this is just being respectful. I don't want to say I feel the game has passed Kirk by, but I see him looking at the game from an outsider's perspective now, and I see him on the sideline during games almost as a spectator and not as a coach. And that's just me as a viewer. A lot of people would say I'm wrong, and I'm sure Coach Patterson would, and Corey, you would too, but that's just how I see it. That leads me to my next pointed question. I know you guys said you saw Gary Bart on the sideline. I saw the same thing, as well as other viewers. I know everybody knows the news about Paul Christ up at Wisconsin. And when Kirk Ferentz was asked directly about the firing, I just saw some changes in his tone, his facial expression, not of concern, but do you think with Gary Bart on the sideline tonight and what's happened with Nebraska, what's happened with Wisconsin, do you think that that's there to send a point from Gary Barta that we might be looking at a change, or is that just coincidence, you think?
I mentioned earlier, maybe you didn't hear me, but I had seen our AD on the sideline at home games too. So I think he's down there routinely.
Yeah. Okay. I won't take up too much of the line here. I appreciate Corey taking the call and saying thing with Coach Patterson. I wanted to agree with Coach Patterson on 2 points that he made. You're going to see a lot of man coverage from defenses that are playing Iowa simply because we don't have a threat on the outside that scares anybody. So you're going to see a lot of man coverage and a lot of stack in the box against Iowa. The reason being is that's what Iowa does. They're a run-oriented first offense. That's what you're going to see. But like Coach Patterson said, the best way to defeat that is to burn them. And you just made an excellent point, Coach Patterson. This is why you have or have had the career that you've had and have the expertise that you have. I wish we would do that and implement that, or our OC or Brian would implement something of that nature when it comes to if somebody wants to just run man coverage on you, try to beat them over the top deep and do it on multiple occasions. Scare them out of that stack in the box or loading the box up. Loosen that defense up. And again, it's just something we just continue not to see. Hopefully, this is me. Hopefully we make an OC change. We get somebody that has some salt behind them and these things are done. But I to keep hearing we don't have the horses in the stable, I just don't agree with that. And that goes from the offensive line to the skill position players. I know a lot of people give Petrus a lot of grief just because he's a statue back there. Yes, he is. But again, I hope we do make a change, and I hope that we can utilize the players that we have because we do have the horses. We just need somebody in there with a skill set that can put that on the field. And gentlemen, I appreciate both you guys' time.
Appreciate it, sir.
Let me make one comment, Corey. You've heard me say before, the only recourse for you, if you're having trouble with people that load the box and play man, is you got to scare them out of it. And there's several ways to do that. One is to simply have a lot of man beaters, a lot of rub routes, but they can't just be conventional routes. They got to be something that is a little bit out of the ordinary. That gives them the best chance to work. Another possibility is to jump your formation so that you get the matchup that you want, the matchup that they don't want you to have. And if you really study formations, you can get an idea of how you can get that done. And there's one other option that I know could work. If they want to play man coverage against us, then why wouldn't we put our best go route runner, regardless of where he shows up on the depth chart? Why wouldn't we put him out wide and throwing the ball? And I'm referring to number one. If he is the best guy on our team, the high point of football, then why wouldn't we put him in and run him on a go route? And it doesn't have to be the first snap. Maybe he's blocking on the first 3 plays, then he runs a go route on the 4th play. Or maybe he simply shows up after on the 6th play of a drive, after the corner's been worn out by another go route by another receiver that we think does not have the chance to beat him over the top. So we certainly did that in the past. There were times when we would purposely run a corner deep a couple of times before we hit him with the go route, simply to tire him out and be able to take advantage of him when he's a little bit winded. Maybe you call that football 400, 401, I guess, or whatnot, grad school football. But, that's the kind of thinking that we did. We would wear a guy down knowing we're not going to throw deep until he's tired, and then we're going to throw deep against him with a fresh receiver. So those are the kind of things that we can still do. But one way or the other, we got to scare them out of man coverage because we're tired of looking at loaded boxes.
Eric says Gary needs to step up. You can't tell me people aren't knocking on his door. He's not getting some nastygrams. I suppose he could be like Kirk and be stubborn and resist change to the grave. Let's get to, I believe David is on our line, who's been waiting for quite some time. David, are you with us? I'm not going to add you here unless I see your video is on and I don't see anybody in the screen. David, are you out there? David. Earth to David. All right, we're going to wait because I don't want to add a blank screen onto the show here. Let's go to our next caller, Berger, who's been on the line for quite some time, and I believe Berger is one of our premium subscribers. Welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, thank you for having me. I am indeed, and I just love you guys' show. Thank you so much for the service you provide with us after these games, especially after these type of games where they're really tough. Just helping to kind of walk through all the ins and outs of what's going on. So I appreciate that. Had a one quick comment and then a question for Coach Patterson. The comment was, regarding someone had brought up the conservative offense before. With anything in life, any of the businesses that we're all involved in, if you don't take risks, you're never going to accomplish anything. And you look at Spencer Petras as an example. I mean, he has 2 touchdown passes this season, I think 3 in his last 10 games. Army, Navy, and Air Force all have more touchdown passes, and they run a triple option. That is the epitome of conservative. I mean, you've got to be able to risk that interception, risk the turnover, risk the bad play in order to get the payoff too. And I think that we've maybe gotten a little bit over cautious on that front in the Kirk Ferentz era, maybe especially now. I mean, I don't remember it being quite this pronounced in the past, but it certainly is right now. Look at Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge is having one of the best seasons ever, but he also is 3rd in strikeouts. You gotta take those risks in order to get the reward. But that's just my O2 on that one. But my question for Coach Patterson is this: given the fact that Spencer Petras is who he is, and our offensive line is what they are, and I'm not going to beat a dead horse and rail on it just because we all know what it is. If Kirk Ferentz came to you tomorrow and said, "Hey, I want your advice. I want you to design a game plan during the bye week that'll help Spencer Petras settle down a little bit, get him into a rhythm." How would you go about designing that? Would you say that hurrying up the offense a little bit when we're hiking the ball at like 15 seconds, as opposed to huddling up every time and getting to the line of scrimmage, looking it over, hiking the football? When we go to a little bit more of a hurry up, like we did at the end of the first half, Petras made, I counted 6 consecutive pretty good passes. Now, one of them was dropped by Reganey. The other, the Illinois defender, knocked out of Laporta's hands. But I mean, he was pretty sharp. And is that a model that can be played out over the whole game, where you get him up to the line quicker, he's not thinking as much, he's just making read and react, smaller slant passes, quicker outs? Is that something that can be sustained? Is that how you would go about doing it, or how would you design this offense around a very statuesque quarterback with a porous offensive line?
But
Well,
Don, before you
Go
add,
ahead,
I
go
just want to give you credit for a second, Don, because you've made the comment to me that Iowa is one of those teams that salts away almost the entire play clock, on a regular basis, and which skews the time of possession statistic that it really kind of takes away from the meaning of that, I guess, if that makes sense to some extent.
Yeah, the time of possession we get credit for is we've actually made it as big as it can possibly be, but we still haven't snapped the ball as many times as the opponent. Probably, right?
You're
Let me
probably
say
right.
this about tonight. You might have noticed, I'm sure you did notice, Illinois any number of times went tempo after a made first down. And when I say went tempo, it just simply meant they were determined to snap the ball in a hurry on the next down. They did it, I don't know how many times, too many times to count. The thought is, of course, well, you're forcing the defensive coordinator to make a really quick call. What's he likely to do? He's likely to call a base defense. Matter of fact, there are a lot of places, I'm sure, if the offense lines up, then the linebacker and the free safety, the people that are coordinating the defense, they have calls that they know immediately to go to. Automatic calls, if you will, safe calls. But typically they are safe calls. They're sound, but they're not anything out of the ordinary. So you tend to standardize the defense a little bit if and when you play fast. I hope that makes sense to you.
Yes, it does. No, that makes sense. I don't know if seeing him succeed on those shorter, quicker passes when they're in the little, it seems like he gets them in a rhythm. but I also don't know if it's like a short playbook where that wouldn't work for a whole game. It may only work for a certain segment of the game.
Well, I certainly wouldn't want to do it all day long, because our tendency of not making a first down means the defense goes back on the field even quicker than they are now. So that's the risk you take. If you're not very productive on offense, you risk putting your defense back out there before they've even recovered from the last possession.
Right. Well, I think at this point I'd be willing to take that risk.
I understand.
No. But
Well, I think if we don't do it very often, it would have good effect, because they certainly don't expect us to do it right now.
Right. Well, thanks for taking my call. Again, I appreciate what you guys are doing, and keep up the good work, and I'll hang up and listen to the rest of the show.
Appreciate it, sir. Thank you so much. This has been kind of a stressful show for me. I don't know why. I just like, oh, how many times have I taken these big breaths? I hope everybody, Don, it's after midnight. I hope you're okay. It's been, you've been on for an hour 15 now, hour 20. Are you good are you good, Don? Are you,
If our fans want to talk, then I'm ready to listen.
Well, I appreciate that. I want to give a shout out to Mike for the super sticker. Appreciate the $2 super sticker from Mike. And Mike is also one of our newest premium YouTube channel members. So thank you to Mike. And this is obviously a good opportunity to remind everybody, if you're interested in becoming a premium subscriber, just a small fee per month to become a subscriber. And of course, it's your way of supporting the network, the channel here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. If you're watching through that channel, we're of course simulcasting to two different channels, Iowa Football at the Voice of College Football as well, one of the many Voice of College Football channels. But again, if you're interested in becoming a premium subscriber here from the Hawkeye of the Storm, click join next to the subscribe button here on YouTube. And of course, if you're interested in donating, just a one-time donation, you can do so by clicking one of the links in the description below for PayPal, Cash App, or Venmo. And if you're a sponsor or a potential sponsor, business, or you maybe as an individual want to sponsor the work being done here from the Hawkeye of the Storm, build your business. Man, it's after midnight, Don. We've got over 630 people still watching this show. So it shows you, A, they appreciate your insight, and B, we got a lot of passionate fans in this fan base. So if you're interested in sponsoring the channel, reach out to me from the Eye of the Storm at outlook.com.
Yes, we do.
Again, trying to get through everything. How about this? I want to have you. Can you read this comment for our viewers, Don? And say who it is. Say who the user is as well in the chat.
That's one of my dear friends. That's the one I've been married to for all these years.
Lisa Patterson says, thanks for keeping us awake as we drive home. The Illinois fans were horrible.
My comment to Lisa would be, stay on deer alert and be sure the driver's alert and awake.
And Don, I'll say this. I'm unfortunate that our phone line was acting up earlier, and we've got people piling up here in StreamYard, so I'm not going to even try to fix it during the show. I know Lisa was thinking about calling in. Of course, she can still do that if she can do so through StreamYard. She should be able to do that through a smartphone, but they may be focused on not hitting deer at this point, and I encourage that.
If you get a phone call from Loretta, then try to get that one on the air, because that would be her sorority sisters.
So Loretta, if you're listening, find the link in the description below this video. Click in the description and hit the link that after join the show, you'll find the link, and we'll get you on the air. Here's a question from Destiny Pirate. Coach Patterson, 1, are Iowans loyal to a fault? Let's recall that Iowan loyalty inspired Hayden to lead us from the cold. I don't know how you answer that, Don. That's the first part of the question. Can we establish that Iowa fans are very loyal? I don't think that's always a bad thing, but it is a fact. The Iowa fan base is passionate, and they're loyal to the football team. That's why every home game was sold out back in late July, despite some questionable moves during the offseason.
Right. You would have thought maybe, let's talk about what changed between last year and this year. Last year we were 10-4, and we're all proud of the fact that we made it to Indianapolis. But the reality, of course, is 3 of those losses were pretty decisive losses.
Yes, they were.
And most importantly, the championship game was more than a disappointment. It was a rough day for any Iowa fan. So what changed between last year and this year? Well, Kenny O'Keefe is no longer in the picture, and John Budmeyer is, and I'm not pinning any blame on him because he's new to the program and has a limited role, I think you'd have to say. So what's amazing, of course, is despite our offense struggling last year, we sold out the stadium before the season ever started. That really is a really strong statement to say about our fan base. So I'm grateful for their loyalty, and it does matter to those players that the stadium is full. Believe me, if it was not full, the players would notice, and they'd still play hard. Of course, it doesn't matter whether there's 50,000 or 70,000, but it's a little more fun to play hard in front of a packed house. I'll say that.
Absolutely. We've
And
got
how good is this defense? It's among the best we've ever had, I think. If there's one thing maybe that might prevent us from being the best ever, it would be, can we hold up to a really difficult run game? Right now, that's and I realize we've faced two of the best backs back to back here over these last two games.
Yes, we have.
So these are ultimate tests, but there are other tests up ahead, assuming that Ibrahim is healthy when Minnesota plays.
How about Ohio State's backs, Don?
Yeah, Ohio State's got a pretty good back too. The backup's probably pretty good too. I know he is for a lot of yards 2 weeks ago, or just 1 week ago.
And frankly, Don, let's not forget about Braylon Allen. He went off. I know it was against Northwestern. I have to think he's still going to get his. I know they struggled against Illinois last week, but boy, he gave Iowa fits last year.
Yeah, and they bounced back against Northwestern, and we realize Northwestern has issues, but if you have pride, you do bounce back. And I think you could say we bounced back. We didn't bounce back well enough to win, but we certainly didn't show up in Champaign and lay an egg. The defense played like they always do, and that always gives us a chance. If there's another thing that the defense can work on to achieve greatness, it would be that they need to find a way to force more turnovers. Because let's face it, if we don't win on turnovers, then we're actually the exception tonight. We were +2 on turnovers and managed to lose. That doesn't happen very often. That's probably at least 80% win, probably 85 at least over the years. If you're +2, you generally win the game. Now, obviously, if you're +2 and you're Rutgers against Ohio State, you probably lose the game anyway. Not to beat up on Rutgers, but you know what I'm saying. If the teams appear to be fairly even, +2 should get you the win every time.
All right, David McCullough is in our queue here, and we're going to add David to the show, who's been waiting patiently for quite some time. David, I can hear myself.
I'm going to look this way. That's okay. Or I can look this way.
Can you turn us?
Here's
down?
what I want to say.
Can you turn us down so I'm not hearing myself echo, David?
Yeah, there is an echo. Can you give me a second?
Sure.
Because I'll have to turn you down. I have to walk away and turn you down. I apologize.
No, you're good. We'll bring you right back here in a second. I appreciate David having us on his TV, it looked like, or it sounded like. So I appreciate that from David, and he's been waiting in the chat waiting in the queue for quite some time. A reminder to everybody, if you're just joining us or you've been here for a while, if you haven't hit the like button, I know we don't have 600 likes. So please do that because you still got 600 people watching. And I think we hit the 900 mark at one point tonight, Don. Again, just impressed with the passion and the dedication of this fan base. Let's go back to David, who I think has this turned down. David, can you hear us?
All right, so I think we're good.
Yes.
I can't hear myself anymore, which is perfectly fine. Here's the things I'm going to say.
Yep.
Okay. One, Brian Ferentz clearly should not be an offensive coordinator. For one, how did that happen? Second, I recognize, Corey, that you said Tyler Barnes has been a good recruiting coordinator. I want you to answer me this. What have been the 2 positions that Iowa has developed in the last 10 years that has been filled by not siblings of or children of Kirk Ferentz?
Well, Abdul Hodge was just hired to the staff during the off season. Does that count? Or you
And that was a new position developed for.
What do you mean a new position developed? I guess you're gonna have to explain yourself.
So recruiting coordinator did not exist, and the QB coordinator did not exist prior to them getting that position. This is what I'm trying to say.
The quarterback coach position didn't exist.
Yeah, thanks, people.
Kenny O'Keefe was the quarterback coach.
No,
Last year, Kenny O'Keefe was the quarterback coach.
But he was Ken O'Keefe.
There was a quarterback coach?
Yes, it was Ken O'Keefe.
Oh, that's right. Okay, that's true.
Okay,
fair enough.
Statement about Tyler
the only things I had to say on the other thing is that clearly we lost a touchdown when we didn't throw the touchdown that should have been had. When it was thrown to the feet on like the slide pass to the left. The running back went out through block, slid off the block, and it was thrown at his feet.
Right.
Second quarter.
Yep. No, that I think we talked.
It was thrown at the feet.
Yeah. Yep. That was not good. You're right. You're right about that, David.
Corey, that was the naked.
That touchdown could have changed the game. Okay. One more thing I will say. One of the things I hate about people is that they try to push. In Iowa City, at least, they try to push Kirk Ferentz as being the holy grail of coaches and giving shit to Fran McCaffrey, when I think that Fran McCaffrey has, in his own right, probably some of the best scouting capabilities that I've ever seen. I mean, I think Kentucky should hire the man. And this is so delayed. But the reality is he finds Aaron White.
Yes.
We're not even talking about, Keegan or anything like that. We all know about Keegan and Chris and everything like that. But, I know this. Connor, yes, he plays. I doubt that he'll even be a coach under Fran.
David,
I don't think Fran will do it.
David.
Let's talk football.
Can you hear me, David? Delay.
Yeah, I can hear you.
I don't want to cut you
I
off,
know.
but just so you're aware, we've got some announcements coming here in the future weeks about basketball, and we're gonna have some call-in stuff for basketball. So can I invite you back for the next call-in show for basketball?
100%.
All right.
Can I say one more thing, though?
One more thing. Yep, we got you.
Outside of most people, I know what Tyler Barnes was doing prior to being he worked at a bar. and he sold picks for games.
He worked at Vanderbilt, David. He worked at Vanderbilt.
Yeah, see, I told you this would be good shit. Man. He was a sports column.
Okay, David, I love you, brother. All right, I appreciate you sticking with the show and being here.
Yo, I'm gonna get probably in trouble for this, but it doesn't matter. The reality is that he worked at sports column. That's where he met Joanna, and then
David.
The coach brought him in, and
I gotta let you go, David. I love you, brother, and I appreciate you being here. But I got calls stacking up here. I appreciate you hanging tight, man. I really do. And please come back during a basketball show in the coming weeks. I apologize for having to cut David off. Cole has been on hold for quite some time. Cole.
I don't know if I can do as good as the last caller.
Well, you're going to have to try, Cole. You're just going to have to give it all you got.
I couldn't stop laughing. Anyways, well, God, I lost my train of thought. Okay, so obviously I'm not an Iowa fan. Everybody knows that. But I'm not here to talk about Nebraska because I don't like talking about Nebraska anyway. So, Don, what do you think is the most overrated statistic in college football? Corey knows where I'm going with this.
I would probably say time of possession, and I'll tell you why. There's two ways to win time of possession. One way is to control the ball on the ground and grind out first downs and keep the other offense off the field. That's one way. The other way is to give up touchdowns in a hurry. You'll win time of possession, but you'll lose the game 49-0 or maybe 63-0. You follow me? If you have a porous defense, it's easier to win time of possession because it's not taking the other team very long to score.
So for the Big Ten media, they asked every coach in the Big Ten what they think is the most overrated statistic was. I think like 8 out of however many coaches said time of possession. And I think you'll be really interested to hear what Kirk Ferentz thought was the most overrated statistic. It was offensive yardage.
One man's opinion.
The reason I'm bringing this up is because Kirk is literally making fun of his own program by saying that. He doesn't care about playing complimentary football. I don't even know if that's in his vocabulary, because if it was, you guys would be in the national championship contention every year if he cared to have complimentary, even sides, all sides working together to win the football game. But that comment, along with the one that he said in the media, we won 10 games last year. Well, nobody was talking about last year. They're talking about the offense this year. So I don't know why he's bringing up last year. But I'm not an Iowa fan, but I have the common sense to realize that if Kirk just realized that his teams need to play complimentary football and they did, you guys would be a top 10 team every single year. That's all I have to say. Thanks, guys.
I appreciate it, Cole. Thanks for the call. And I just want to say this. Eric, thank you for this compliment. He says, thank you for what you do. For real, love the channel. Thank you. Iowa fans have gone accustomed to mediocrity. And I believe Eric is our newest member here on YouTube. So thank you for becoming a premium member here to the YouTube channel, Eric. And again, you appreciate your support. Any way that you're supporting the channel is much appreciated. So thank you, Eric, for becoming a premium subscriber. Lemansky with the super chat. We have 240 number immobile quarterback. Liked the naked call to the left, but the key passer should be a more athletic player in a package like DeJean, or good hands, speedy player like Wampa need touchdowns. James, appreciate the super chat, James. I think as a whole, the offense needs revamped, and I could not agree with you more. I think it's to a point now where well, I said it last year, there needed to be an overhaul, and it's only gotten worse since last year. Leo's been on hold for a long time. Leo, welcome to the show.
Hey, Corey. Hey, Coach. How y'all doing?
Hello.
We're doing okay.
Yeah, well, if I was in Iowa, I would get all y'all a hug, but I'm over here in Texas. No, but so I was watching some of the game, because I called last week. I'm a Michigan guy, but I appreciate Iowa football, and I love the Big Ten. And so I was watching, and I realized like a lot of times the formation on offense is always it's a big bunch. It's always a lot of times it's slow developing. So you guys did have some success on a couple of those stretch runs against Michigan, but I mean, you can't do that every down. Eventually, they're going to fill those gaps, and you're just going to start losing yards. And I'll tell you what, Peach is kind of bipolar when he throws the ball. He's beautiful money, 2 or 3, and I understand there's pressure in his face. I get that. He was under duress a lot. But some of his passes are beautiful dimes, and some of them is like, where were you going with that kid? Gosh, it's that offense looks like it was the 1980 Hawkeyes. It was like that kind of that kind of formation and that kind of thinking, and that I don't see how that's going to be successful in the Big Ten. Don't we got USC and UCLA coming?
Leo, weren't you the one that called like a week or two ago and told us that we didn't know what we had and that we need to not, we need to appreciate Kirk Ferentz because look what Michigan did with Lloyd Carr. Aren't you the one that called in and said that?
Yeah, I'm speaking for his son that he should promote to the offensive line.
Promote to the offensive line? Or
quotation marks. It's his son, so I don't know if he's actually going to give him a demotion. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, and I thought they were calling for Kirk's head last week. That's why I said what I said. I said, yo, you don't understand. It's not that easy. What are you going to do? Go get Urban Meyer?
But there are other coaches that I'm not saying that I'm not advocating for a change, but Leo, the idea that there aren't other coaches that could succeed here is just frankly false. That's just not true.
I agree. I agree with that. I agree with that.
Get it done here.
I agree with that. But
because I think people don't understand what this Iowa program and I give a lot of credit to both of these guys, Kirk and Hayden, but and people like Don Patterson who's staring at you right now. But my point is, Don, you can speak to this. I think this program, this is a good coaching job.
Yes, it is.
And we wouldn't know that because we've had 2 head coaches in the past 43 years. But
do you think the AD would step in and maybe get his hands on his own OC?
He's the one who has to do it because of the nepotism rule, right? Technically, Don, he's the one who has
correct.
to.
He's the direct supervisor.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what makes Iowa unusual, because I used to recruit down in Texas years ago when I was working for Iowa, and I figured out pretty quickly what to say to a kid from North Texas. I would explain to him this way. We don't have professional football in the state of Iowa. We are the Dallas Cowboys of Iowa. And you need to realize that's when Dallas was really good. So that really made an impression on a high school young man from Texas. And I could back it up, of course, because the stadium was always full. So they knew it was a big deal to play for Iowa, just like it's a big deal to play for the Cowboys.
Yeah, some of them are delusional, Coach. I understand your point. That's a great point. But some of these people over here, as far as the Cowboys, I don't know. I don't get it. But no, I understand. Gosh, I really do think, and I'm not joking, the defense, gosh, they tried their hearts out to win that game for you. What a hit that caused that Illinois guy to fumble right there in the red zone for you. What a pop, man. They were flying everywhere.
Let me give credit to the defense, Corey. There were at least 3 plays tonight that were critical downs where Illinois came within a yard or 2 of making a first down. The only reason they didn't is because of a great play by an Iowa defender. Let me see. Merriweather had 2 of them. I'm talking about hard hits that stoned the guy, and he ended up a yard or 2 short. really aggressive tackles. I believe Jack Campbell was the other one. But we had at least 3 exceptional plays on third down to stop a drive. And I think it deserves mention because they were not your average plays. They were exceptional plays.
Absolutely. They knocked those guys backwards, and there's no doubt about that. They were playing their hearts out. You got one side of the football that I think you're definitely doing fine at. Maybe so I was watching Michigan, Indiana today, and before Coach Hart went down and those kids looked really distraught the first half, but Indiana, they picked the pace up. And they're snapping the ball, catching us on switches and changes, and they had a lot of success just on pace alone. Do you think that's maybe an option if you get somebody in there who can get those kind of formations set up with those kids? You think, because you guys got some weapons. That Peters, who's that big guy you guys got? He made all the receptions today. Monster.
Laporta.
There you go, Laporta. Gosh, he's a beast. I wish he was at Michigan. I don't know. He's a good guy.
Tight end, yeah. He's a good tight end.
Your tight end's not too bad either.
Yeah.
Oh, Shoemaker, yeah, he's pretty tough kid.
Leo, I appreciate the phone call, and feel free to call in anytime. We're happy to talk with you, even though you're a Michigan fan and even though you live in Texas. Don's a Texas native, so you guys got something in common.
Awesome, and thank you so much. Listen, you guys keep your head up. I promise you it's going to get better.
I appreciate that, Leo. Thanks for the phone call. And okay, I want to run through a couple things. So you need to know this, Don. Margie Davis. Margie or Margie?
Margie.
Margie says Loretta and gang dodged all deer and are back safely. How about
That's
Margie keeping you posted live on the air, Don? How about that?
That's right. I'm disappointed Loretta didn't write in.
Yeah, where you at, Loretta? Loretta dropping the ball.
There's no Loretta. That's just a name for the group. That's just a collective name. Since Loretta Lynn passed away, they were honoring Loretta Lynn.
Oh, okay. I guess you did tell me that before. Couple things here. Kevin, appreciate the super sticker from Kevin. Thank you for being here and being a part of the show, interacting as always. Thank you for the super sticker. I don't know what this comment means. Ryan says, Corey, you're pissed. You don't have the email and wondering if they're blanking with you, aren't you? I'm confused as to what that means, Ryan. I don't know what that means. Brandon Jacoba. Anyone else think that Moss has looked a step slow in coverage this year, Don?
Well, he's been beaten a few times. He's an aggressive player. Let's face it, if he didn't make the aggressive play, he wouldn't have forced the fumble tonight. But he needs to be conscious that his first job is to prevent deep throws, and there have been a few people get behind him. So he needs to recognize if he wants to have an opportunity to play in the NFL, he better start defending deep balls better than what he has been. I'll say that.
JD says, I think Iowa keeps it close against Ohio State, but loses on a last-second field goal. What do you think, Corey? As of right now, I don't think it'll be that close, JD. I'm not saying it'll be a total blowout. I think Iowa's defense will do what it does, but let's just say this: they're not going to be stuck on 6 through 3 quarters like Illinois was. John says, Don, do you have yards yak stats for Petrus, and do you consider that an indication of QB decisions and accuracy?
No, I don't. You're talking about yards after. You're talking about.
He's talking about yards after catch on all passes from Spencer.
I see what you're saying. You're saying, is it? I don't know what that name stands for, but John Chapin. You're simply stating that the numbers are a little bit inflated because of yak yardage, primarily by Laporta, of course.
Well, and I think he also may be talking about a lack of yards after catch because of Spencer's inability to lead his receivers and hit them in stride.
That's factored in also. You're right. But last week, of course, let's not forget that Lachey got a lot of good yak yardage, which inflates the numbers a little bit. Those receivers would tell you that's my job description. My job is to make yards after the catch. So they just feel like they're doing their job.
Ben says, question for you, Don. When do you start planning for 23 and getting the young guys playing time? This team is going nowhere. Why not let the young guys play and get them experience? I know this is a question for you, Don, but may I just say that there's no way that this. I don't think, even if I was the coach and I was in this situation, I would hope that I'd never be in this situation having my son as the offensive coordinator. But my point is, I don't think you're to that point. I know it looks dire. The offense is in a bad place right now, but you're still three. You're 1-2, and it's too early, is what I'm saying. So 1-2 in the West or in the Big Ten, 3-3 overall. You're not throwing the towel in at this point, Don.
Absolutely not.
As much as fans may feel like they've thrown the towel in, the coaches are not. And
well, think of it this way: there's no game to get ready for next Saturday. But what there is, there are 6 games remaining on our schedule. I would recommend that we do something like this: maybe target 3 of those 6, and spend time game planning this week on those 3 opponents that we have plenty of time to do so with. One of them logically would be Ohio State, since they're our next game, but maybe pick out 2 other opponents or 3 other opponents, whatever the case might be. In your estimation, the teams that are going to be the most difficult to beat, why not get some evaluation on them now, some game planning done on them even now? What I'm saying is, just because it's an off week doesn't mean you need to go home early, because there's work to be done, because we have to do the best we can in all 6 remaining games. Hope that makes sense.
Absolutely it does. Vital Transformation says the O-line is a disaster, right? Does anybody smarter than me at X and O football think differently? Can you explain? That's a question for you, because you know more about X and O football than any of us, Don.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, in general, would you say, I know at least 3 of the starters are, 2 of them are redshirt sophomores, one of them is a true sophomore. I guess I don't know for sure I don't even know what our starting 5 is. Who would you say right now is starting at guard? I'm not sure.
Well, I think the depth chart says that it's Bo Stevens and it's not Dunker. Who would it be? DeYoung, Nick DeYoung, who's a junior now, I believe.
Yeah. Well, the only reason I'm even asking, and I know that Coach Burnett's trying to get to the point where he is able to start 5 guys and have 5 guys play most of the snaps. The challenging part, of course, you got to figure out who the 5 best players are. And obviously he's not sure at guard who's better than who. Every week we're trying to get an answer for that. And as soon as we have a good answer, I think you're going to see 5 guys out there more consistently rather than some backups. And I think that will give us a little better chance for continuity, because it's a little bit like a basketball team. Those 5 starters work together so much that they really develop an understanding of what their teammates are going to do on any given play. And it does make you a little more efficient in offensive line if you're always lining up next to the same guy. So maybe in another week or 2, we can get to the point where we have 5 starters.
Appreciate the super sticker here from BIB, who's in the chat. Appreciate the super sticker, BIB. And he says, let's see, I lost the comment, but again, appreciate that from BIB. Steve says, Don needs to know we appreciate his work with Hayden back in the day. Those offenses were awesome. My first time at Kinnick, Bob Cummings was at the helm.
We got cheered for just making first downs, I think, in 1979. But thankfully, in 3 years, we were in Pasadena, too. That's still the fastest turnaround in the history of the Big Ten. That's something we should all be proud of.
We had Gail in our queue a minute ago, and now Gail is gone. So, Gail, if you're here, we were just, again, trying to catch up on everything. Come back if you could. Hawkeye Howard is here. Hawkeye Howard, how you doing tonight, buddy? Are you on the road?
Hey, man. I had to pull over, do my 30 minutes, thought I'd jump on and say, well, tough loss. This was a tough loss. We had opportunities to win the game. Of course, it didn't work out. But and there were some good parts of it, and there were some bad parts, mostly more bad than good. But the interception was a killer. But we all know that. Like I said, I had signs last night that it wasn't going to turn out. When you have you get a dollar, it had 3 6s on it. Oh, this is not going to work, you know. And then I had an owl come out in front of me, and I hit an owl. So I knew it was not going to be a good day.
You hit a what?
An owl.
An owl?
That's
Yes.
got to be better than hitting a deer, I would think.
It did some damage. It broke the windshield.
Yeah.
What kind of an owl?
It was just an old barn owl.
Well, now I'm kind of mad at you, Hawkeye Howard, because I really like owls.
Well, he
That's
comes
when
right
you
in
know
front
you're
of
having
me.
a bad day is when you hit an owl with your car.
Nice.
Yeah, he flew right in front of me, and he hit me right in the passenger side windshield. And they had to put a new windshield in the truck earlier today. So
Thank God for auto insurance.
yeah. I'm lucky it wasn't in my lap.
Because it probably wouldn't have been happy if it was in the car with you.
Yeah, that almost hit a deer on the way up here. So, but anyway, guys, I will make this quick. I enjoy the show. Corey, you've done a great job. Coach, thank you for coming on every week. We love you. And you guys have a good night.
Appreciate it,
Thank
Hawkeye
you,
Howard.
Howard.
Thank you for checking in with us, as always. Always enjoy his phone calls. And let me get to this comment from Spaceboy74. Can Don answer this? Have you ever seen an overall worse offense than this year's Iowa offense?
I'm sure I have, but I don't know who it was or when it was. You know, there are some offenses you look at them and you're thinking, I don't really want to study this offense because I don't believe I can learn anything from studying them. I don't believe I can find any plays that should be part of our offense. So in that regard, I don't look at offenses that are unproductive. Yeah, I typically, if an offense is really out of sight with their number, I'm talking about when I coached, I would for sure take a look at those offenses to see what they might be doing that we weren't doing. And then in some cases, we could incorporate what they do to make them better. And in other cases, we made the sound decision that it was something we simply couldn't do.
Okay. T-Leeb says, is Spencer gone next year? Or is he eligible? Well, he would be able to come back if he was accepted back. He would have a free COVID year if he chose to exercise it, and the coaching staff chose to take him back. So that answers that question. Leon says, still no discussion about laughing Brian Ferentz. We did talk about that earlier. So, Leon, if you want to, maybe you joined later. We did discuss that a couple different times, actually. RDHV says, Corey, have Don give us the rundown of his footballs in the background sometime. We will do that sometime, Don, maybe after tonight, because we're trying to catch up and get you some shut-eye. But I know some of the stories on some of the footballs in the back, but I know some people would love to hear that. Carlos, Coach Don, can the offense incorporate some quick hit plays to tight ends to attempt to get linebackers and safeties on their toes a bit more?
We threw some quick passes to tight ends even today. There was a key play on 3rd and 4 we threw to Laporta on what you might think of as I don't know what to call it, a whip route, I guess is a good name for it. He started off a little bit outside like he's running a zip route to the flat, and then he put his foot in the ground, his outside foot in the ground, and then broke back inside, caught the ball at maybe 5-yard depth. But it did give us a key first down. He was wide open over the ball. So we have some quick throws to Laporta. And, of course, let's not forget about short throws like screen passes. Tonight didn't work. I would suggest a screen pass needs to have a blocker in front. We threw him a screen pass, and the blockers never got out. And so he was out there just doing what he could all by himself.
And a comment here from Tim. He says, Corey, would you ever get invited to press conferences? So I'm able to go to press conferences. The thing is I live 2 hours away from Iowa City, Tim. So I was at Media Day, and I try to take part. I haven't been able to take part in the Wednesday press conferences because I've got other work on Wednesday mornings that I can't get away from. But I've been a part of some of the Zoom press conferences and would be happy to attend press conferences. I just this is not my full-time gig, so I've got other responsibilities other than driving to Iowa City on a Tuesday 2 hours to ask a couple questions and then driving 2 hours back. But I appreciate the question, Tim. Space Boy, if Kirk and Brian asked me to lunch, but at the same time Corey and Don asked me to lunch, I'd go with Corey and Don so we could talk about Kirk and Brian. That's a good. That might be the
Is
comment.
Space Boy treating for lunch? Is that what he's saying?
Yeah, there you go. He's treating us to lunch. John says Quinn Schulte isn't playing that well. Why not put Xavier in? You agree with that, Don? Quinn Schulte's not playing well?
I didn't see him as a liability tonight. I mentioned that he had 9 total tackles. He did have the interception, which was, of course, a key play. I'm sure he might have missed a tackle or two, but I don't know that Xavier could play better right now based on one having a lot of experience and, of course, Xavier not having nearly so much. So I certainly can't say that Quinn Schulte is a weak link in the defense because I haven't seen that yet.
All right. And Cooper says, my question to Don is, how do you talk to Spencer at this point? If he is the starter going forward, what do you tell him throughout the week?
That's a tough one. Where do I start? There's a lot of things that can be discussed. I would simply remind him, let's be sure, first off, let's correct our mistakes from tonight's game. And if you think there aren't any, then you're wrong. And that makes Spencer no different than any other quarterback. Even all Big Ten quarterbacks, Matt Rogers was a 2-time all Big Ten quarterback, and he still made mistakes from time to time. There's no way anybody can play a perfect game. But the great players I've coached, they all aspired to play a perfect game. And I'll give you 2 prime examples. Marv Cook and Tim Dwight. They aspired to play a perfect game. You can't call a perfect game. You can't play a perfect game, but you're wrong if you don't aspire to get that done.
Absolutely. Tim says, you're my favorite podcaster. Thank you, Tim. But he says, you know who actually calls this offense, man, and it's not Brian.
With all respect to Tim, I don't think he's correct. Kirk Ferentz is not calling plays.
He's not calling plays. We can acknowledge that this is the style of offense that Kirk wants. Can we agree on that, Don?
Yes.
The play-to-play calls is Brian.
That's correct.
Okay.
Kirk may from time to time say 2 words, run it or pass it. He may give him that kind of advice. He's not telling him what play to run unless there's a timeout and it's the play of the game. Obviously, he might have input then. But in general, Brian's making the call.
Corey's T-Leab says Corey's opening statement is how just about every Iowa fan thinks at this point. Why are we being punished by Kirk and Brian? The offense is so hard to watch. A wasted D and special teams unit. Matt, does losing longtime strength and conditioning coach Chris Doyle play into the issues with the offensive line? I think it does, Don. Do you have some perspective on that?
Well, you've heard me say before, maybe not simply because our defensive line had played well. Offensive line had struggled. Defensive line had played well. But I will admit the last 2 weeks, you could argue, is it conceivable that our defensive line would be more physical, more dominant under Chris Doyle in the weight room than our current strength coach? I'll just say it that way. We'll never know, but I can understand that a fan might wonder if that's part of our problem.
Eric says, can we get Corey some more love and make this channel huge, thus allowing this to be Corey's main gig and allow him to drive to Iowa City to ask the tough questions? I'll just say this right now, Don, that I have no problem asking tough questions because I really don't care what people think about any response, and that's not a shot at anybody in the Iowa media. I'm just, frankly, I don't. If it's a fair question, if it's asked with respect, I believe that people who are making millions of dollars can answer tough questions, and I believe that they should answer tough questions. And I believe when you've hired your son as your offensive coordinator, and this is the result, Don, you have to be able to answer tough questions. And I have not yet watched Kirk Ferentz's press conference, But if the reports of what he said in response to the question about a coaching change, if that's indeed what he said, I'm disappointed in Kirk Ferentz. I'll just say that. I'm disappointed in him if that's the case. James says, my question for Don is this. Do you or have you seen a season like this hurt recruiting? I think that's absolutely the case, right, Don?
Well, you've heard me talk about it. The end of Hayden's 20 years. As he got older, he retired at 69. So the 1997 season was his next to last year. Is that right? Yeah. Let's go 1996. 1996 was his 2 years away from his last year. His last year was 98. And at the time, he was 67 years old. And even then, we were having to deal with recruits being told, yes, he's a great football coach, but how long do you think he's going to coach? And so it became harder to recruit guys simply because they didn't know if they could count on Coach Fry to be their coach for all 4 or 5 years. That was one problem associated with it. The other problem was, as time went on, we lost some really good coaches, as you know. It was difficult to replace them with someone that was just as talented as the one that left. Coach Fry tried to do that, of course, but it's hard to do because, let's face it, some of his hires have been really good. And when those guys left, we missed them.
John says that how good of a recruit was David Davidkov? How good was he supposed to be? Was he supposed to be a cornerstone? Well, he was a 4-star recruit, and he's not with the team. So that is a difference. That's a factor here. But Connor Colby was a 4-star recruit. That 21 class of offensive linemen was actually a pretty darn good class. So, I know some of those guys, those guys are still young, but we kind of made the same excuse last year. And remember, Don, there are older guys. Like I said the same thing last year. We say, well, they're young. Well, we're playing young guys. What about the old guys? Where's
Right.
Jack? Where's Jack Plum? I don't mean to call somebody. Maybe I shouldn't call him out specifically, but he's a senior.
I guess he's our third tackle, I guess, right? Would he go in on either side?
I think he's playing some. I mean, I haven't, I'm not logging the snaps, but my point is, he's an experienced guy. So either
Right.
he's not stepping up or he's dealing with injuries, but he's not playing much. Nick DeYoung's been in the program at least 3 years. I know Justin Britt's down with the injury. David Cobb, he wasn't an old guy even if he was here right now, but he's not with the team right now. Trying to think around that offensive line. Mason Richmond's in his third year, Don. I mean, at some point you say, well,
Right.
they're young. He's in his third year. I mean,
Well, let's not forget that Tristan Wirfs played really well as a freshman. So it can be done. Obviously, some guys need more time than others.
and I'm drawing a blank. Who's our right tackle right now? I'm drawing a blank. It's Colby, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, so you're playing Colby and Dunker and Stevens. Yeah, a lot of those guys are young. I get that. But my point
And
is
Richmond has a lot of starts, right? How many starts he got now? 20-something?
enough. I'm just saying between DeYoung and Richmond and Plum, it's not like they're just young across the board. They've got some older pieces. They've had some guys that I guess haven't developed. The kid from his name has always escapes me. The kid from Norwalk who was a 4-star recruit. Somebody in the chat help me. The kid from Norwalk that was I think a 4-star offensive lineman. I don't know what's happened with his development. And I don't know. Maybe he's got something else going on. I don't know. But my point is they have had people through here that haven't worked out. They've had guys transfer. Noah Fensky transferred. Ezra Miller transferred. It's just, I mean, it is what it is. I just hate saying, well, they're young. Well, guys leave and graduate. You can always say they're young if you're not developing the guys who, you know what I'm saying, Don?
Absolutely.
If you haven't developed the older guys, then we can always use that as an excuse.
We all have the same number of scholarships, of course.
This is a good question from S1117. Isn't it unfair to Petrus to have to answer questions after games and not Brian Ferentz? Well, that's a fair point. That's just how it operates, right, Don? Assistant coaches don't go into post-game press conferences.
I don't know what the policy is. I suppose that's right. Players are requested. I'm sure of that. Beyond that, the head coach talks and the players talk, and that's it, I guess.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know why. I mean, to me, a situation like this, Brian Ferentz should have to face the media. That's my opinion. Slay03 says, was it me or did Illinois have a lot of extracurricular activities going on after the whistle that was not called? Did you notice anything, Don?
Well, our guy retaliated. He wasn't the first push. The Illinois guy pushed him first, and then he pushed back. And we always say the retaliator is the one that gets caught. The first guy typically doesn't get caught, but the second guy does. That was help me out. Who was that?
Bo Stevens, correct?
It was Bo, yeah. Yeah, dead foul on Bo Stevens is a killer. It was going to be a 32-yard field goal. How about this for bad luck? Thank God it didn't hurt us. But think about this. Our guy made the 32-yarder, and then there was offside on the defense. So we move up 5, and now he's got to kick again. And I'm thinking, that doesn't seem fair. We should be able to. But, of course, the point was the contact on the line was made. Theoretically, the play was over at that moment. And we still kicked the ball, but, of course, it was a dead ball, so we had to kick again. And he made both of them.
Okay. Tyler Indris is the person I was trying to think from Norwalk. I don't know where Tyler Indris is. He was a pretty big recruit at the time. I don't, I always wonder when guys like that. I mean, I brought up Dallas Cradith. I don't mean to pick on him because he's a great kid. I talked to him at media day, and I really admire him sticking with it. But he was a 4-star safety. He had offers from LSU and all these different schools. He's not even playing on special teams right now, Don. He was making an impact on special teams last year, and Dallas Cradith is nowhere to be found. So is it a fact that just some guys don't work out? They just
You've always heard me refer to recruiting as an inexact science, Corey. Yeah. And the truth of it is there are 4 stars that don't pan out, and there are 3 stars that make All-American.
Absolutely. Jack Campbell, guys like Jack Campbell are perfect
examples. Porter wasn't very highly recruited either, right?
Absolutely. I mean, frankly, Spencer Petras is a 4-star recruit. Jed says, question for Don. If I were in the shoes of a player in the Hawkeye defense, I'd be extremely frustrated with our offense's lack of production. How do you keep morale high within the locker room?
Well, you better have extra character, and you better continually remind the defense that it's a team game, that we win as a team, we lose as a team. And if we score 6 points and give up 9, then we simply gave up too many points. That may seem unfair because that's an unbelievably high bar, but that's the mentality that you have to have.
Yeah, and in response to JT, yes, I know Andrews is on the roster. My point is, where's he's not playing. That's my point. Eric says Brian sticks to the script too much. He has no feel for the game. Coach Don, when do you go off script when the first few plays are not going your way?
Well, I'd like to tell you that my first few plays always went my way. You know why? Because they're plays that I have great confidence in. And typically we did get off to a good start. If you go back and look at old film, we had a habit of scoring on our first possession too, like Michigan and like Ohio State. And the reason is we ran good plays that we had great confidence in based on all the video that we'd seen.
All right. Ryan has been waiting for Coach Patterson for quite some time. Ryan, how you doing? Welcome back.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Coach. Couple calls over actually answered my question, but my big question is offensive line. I thought Logan Jones got worked. What are your thoughts on that? And yeah.
Don?
Ryan, my guess is you played offensive line, maybe.
Maybe.
Because you watch the offensive line more than I do. I was a quarterback, and I was an offensive coordinator for a long time, so I tend to try to watch everybody, not zero in on the O-line. And in that regard, you probably have a better idea of how they played than I do.
I like Logan, but I thought he kind of got worked tonight. Do you agree? When you watch the tape, it looks a little.
It seemed to me we had as many or more problems with our tackles, with the edge guys. I don't know. They ended up with 5 sacks. I don't know where the pressures came from, but I do know that our tackles struggled against their edge rushers. So I think it was a problem across the board, really.
Thank you.
And they do have above average pass rushers. Let's not forget that. And we were in 3rd and long a lot.
Ryan, do you have any other questions?
No, I appreciate it.
I appreciate it, sir. Thanks for being here. All right. We have made a lot of headway. We've made a lot of headway in 3 hours, Don. We've
Don't tell me we're down to 47 listeners.
no, we've still. It's after 1 o'clock in the morning. We still got 450 people on here, Don. Think about
Let's
that.
hear it for Hawkeye football. Let's hear it for our fans.
That's absolutely right. Again, folks, to recap, and I want to spend the last couple of minutes here recapping what happened this evening, and I don't enjoy this. I don't relish this. Iowa losing, being defeated by the Fighting Illini of Illinois. And, of course, Brett Bielema's got that team headed in the right direction. I know they struggled offensively tonight, but they were down their quarterback who got hurt early. I hope he's okay because I wish all the best for them. I know they're in the same frankly, they're right in the thick of things in this division right now, Don. A division that's not performing very well. Wisconsin is now back in the mix, I believe. Purdue still is probably my favorite. They were my favorite heading into the year. They didn't play great at times today against Maryland, but got the job done. Right now, I consider Iowa to not be in the mix, frankly. I mean, I understand that they're not far out of first place, and there's still a lot of time left. But boy, with Ohio State on the rise and what Iowa's got left in the schedule, and of course Minnesota still. I think Minnesota was on bye this week, correct?
They were.
But anyways, I digress. Iowa is struggling on the ground again today. We know the sack yardage affected things. We just look at running back play. LaShawn Williams had 7 carries for 32 yards. Caleb Johnson with 9 carries for 30 yards. Gavin Williams with 4 carries for 4 yards. Petrus actually had 28 yards. He had a few scrambles, Don, but the net of -10 after those sacks.
Right.
Because of the 38 yards taken in sack yardage. Petrus ended up with a stat line of 18 for 36 with a pick, no touchdowns, 170 yards on the day. Again, took 5 sacks, had a long of 32 yards. I'm talking about a long pass of 32 yards. Laporta hit 100 yards receiving. What a day for him. 59 yards of which came after the catch, a long of 32. I talked about Reganey. 10 catches for Nico Reganey.
Wow.
How about Nico? 10 targets. I'm sorry, 7 catches. 10 targets, 7 catches.
How many targets for Sam?
16 targets for Sam Laporta.
And frankly, that's a little bit of our problem, of course, is where he has great confidence in Sam. And there are times tonight, I'll put it this way, there were some balls that were thrown to Sam that were good balls, but it was such tight coverage that the ball got jostled out several times.
Arlen Bruce continues to baffle me why he's become less and less. As more players have come back, it seems like he's become less and less a part of the offense, which actually doesn't make much sense to me. I thought maybe his role would actually be increased when he had more help around him. That has not been the case.
Here's a question. Did Keegan get on the field tonight?
No.
I didn't think so.
No. Luke Lachey, that's baffling to me. How do you target Luke Lachey just once in the game? I don't get that. 1 target for Brody Brecht. Chase Brown, what a night for that Illinois running back. I think he's an NFL back. He's small, right? He's on the small end, kind of like Blake Corum, frankly.
I think he's 205, maybe 5'11", 205. That's small by NFL standards. You're right.
How about 31 carries against that Iowa front? The 31 carries for $152, and average almost 5 a carry. That's a good day. That's a good day against that Iowa front, Don.
Think of it this way: that's better than our yards per attempt with our passing game.
Second leading receiver for either team, Brian Hightower with 5 catches for 68 yards and the long of 34. I think this game was absolutely lost on missed opportunities in the red zone, Don. I mean, that would be how I'd sum this thing up because, Illinois ran the ball effectively, but you talked about turnovers. How about the turnover numbers in this game? Let me scroll down to turnovers. You talked about them earlier. Trying to navigate the stat sheet here, Don.
We forced 3 and they forced 1. We were +2.
Yeah, 3-1. So, you would think that, but again, points off turnovers. Let's talk about that. Points off turnovers. 0 for Illinois, which credit to Iowa's defense for not allowing them to cash in, but 3 for Iowa. So again, 2 turnovers translated into 3 total points. Just not going to get it done. And time of possession, Illinois won time of possession, not by much, but they did win time of possession. But again, that number is somewhat skewed because of how Iowa plays. Third down conversion is always an interesting number here. I need to become more organized with my.
They were slightly better. I do remember that.
Third down conversions, yes. Iowa was 5 of 17. Illinois was 4 of 16. So neither team converted third downs particularly well. But we did have a caller earlier who brought up fourth downs. How about Illinois? 3 of 3 on fourth downs. Those are critical downs, and you could say even more critical than the third down plays.
Well, just so you know, I always combine the two to figure critical down conversions.
And if you do that, then at least it's a somewhat respectable number for Illinois. That would be 7
Illinois.
of 19.
Illinois has a slight edge on us for the game.
Right. Well, a little bit more than slight edge, Don. I'd say, what, about 10%? 10%?
I'm not sure. I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was a slight edge.
Well,
I remember I didn't have to do the math to realize it was an edge. So
5
it was
of
probably
17.
at least 5%, if not 10.
Yeah, 5 of 17 compared to 7 of 19.
Yeah.
So, anyways, Jack Campbell for the day with 13 more tackles for a guy who's I don't know where he ranks nationally in tackles, probably pretty high. I thought he made a couple of really nice plays defensively. How about that? How about that catch off the helmet on the punt? That what is this thing with punts hitting guys in the? What was the game the other day you were talking to me about where a punt hit a guy in the helmet?
It was a kickoff. They
What
were
was the
actually,
kickoff?
yeah. Maryland muffed the opening kickoff against Michigan, set them up with the short score,
Yes.
and Wisconsin muffed a kick last week against Illinois, a kickoff.
Is it a matter of maybe depth perception when you have the helmet and the guard? And I mean, is that a
Shame on you if you muff a kickoff. That's not hard to field. Punts are another animal, as you've heard me say. And I gave a lot of credit to Torrey for that muffed punt because that ball was 50 yards on the fly, and it was up there a long time, obviously, because Jack Campbell was nearby when the ball came down.
let me just say this. How about Jack Campbell? 7 of his 13 tackles were solo tackles. So he's putting in work. It was good to see Aaron Graves get some extended play again today. He continues to work himself into the mix. The one thing I'd say about the front four, Don, and you may tell me I'm wrong, but it seems as good as the front four and the front 7 as a whole is, seems like there's still some improvement to be made with pass rush. We talked about after the Rutgers game how they hit Simon a ton, but it seemed like they were a half second behind. And if they can recover that half second or so, those sack numbers are just going to increase. And as you know, sack yardage is just huge. And of course, Iowa lost that stat tonight.
And we did have several sacks on Simon last week. And think of it this way. Their backup quarterback in many ways is a lot like Spencer, right? He's not very mobile. So you would like to think we could get to him a time or two.
Okay. I don't really have any. The only other notes I had written down for you, Don, I thought it was a bogus face mask call on Caleb Johnson. You're stiff arming a guy and your finger gets caught. And clearly I thought it was an acting job on the part of the Illinois defender. That's a bogus call. And I think you got to be smarter as an official.
You very seldom see that call on a running back. Who is it always on? It's always on the O-lineman, right? It's always on the O-lineman versus the pass rusher.
And frankly, I'd be a little bit nervous about Caleb Johnson's finger because to me, it looked like it got caught in the face mask.
Yeah, you're right. It did.
The official, I thought, called the elbow thing the ball when Illinois fumbled, but it was called back. I thought that was actually the wording that the official used was probably not the best because he said the elbow was down. I don't know that we know that the elbow was down. I think the proper call would have been to say the forearm was down, but I agree with overturning that call. I thought it was conclusive that the forearm was down. I don't think it was conclusive that the elbow was down.
Let's be sure the listeners understand on those kind of plays, you might say, well, how did they let it extend? They clearly thought it was a fumble, but that's not how they're instructed. They're instructed if it's close, do not blow your whistle. Imagine what would happen if we blew the whistle, said it was down, and then the replay showed that it wasn't down. Well, now we got a problem, right? Because where do you spot the ball? Who has the ball? That type of thing. So you got to let it play out. And my point is, just because they let the play extend doesn't mean that it was a fumble.
Right.
They're going to rely on the instant replay to decide.
I have written down the Gavin Williams up the sideline. The play was just a disaster. Gavin Williams is not looking back. It sounded like you believe that Spencer threw that ball early.
Just basing it on the conversation between Brian and Spencer on the bench.
He also threw the ball at his feet. So even if he had thrown it on time and Gavin had been looking back, it was uncatchable.
I don't remember that he was pressured on that play. I don't think he was. But I could be wrong. Maybe he was. I'm not sure.
I don't know for certain. I'd have to look back.
I couldn't remember any pressure.
I don't know at what point this occurred, but did you at all question Iowa's probably not, and I'm just asking you, but did you at all question Iowa's decision to punt from the Illinois 41?
At what point in the game?
I don't know. I don't have that written down. I just know at some point they it was not in the fourth quarter, but they punted from the Illinois 41.
Well, we didn't kill the ball in close like they did to us. That brings up a good point. I think there's an argument if you're in pooch punt territory, and let's say that's between the plus 40 and midfield, between the plus 40 and the 50-yard line, right? These punters have such strong legs. That's really pooch punt territory. There is an argument for putting 2 punt returners back there, simply because did you see what happened with Illinois? I think the ball was on the left hash. I think our punt returner lined up on the left hash as we look down the field on the same spot where the ball was, except the punter, of course, takes off right, punts right. We can't get to the ball. They kill it on the 2. Right. So there is an argument to put 2 guys back there so they simply cannot punt away from you.
And then the 2nd and 10, I called it a trick reverse to Reganey. It was kind of odd because you have misdirection with Spencer starting to roll right. It was almost like a double reverse.
I lost you, Corey.
The reverse to Reganey, Don?
Go ahead. I lost you there for a second.
Can you hear me, Don?
I hear you now, yeah.
The reverse to Nico Reganey, which almost was like a double reverse. I mentioned that earlier, but I guess I don't understand the concept of running Spencer right. It was like a double reverse with the quarterback and Nico, and then tossing it to Nico, who's running back. Again, you mentioned the wide defender. I almost thought maybe they were trying to throw out of that, but if they were trying to throw out of that, I would assume Nico is left-handed because they had him going to the left side of the field.
I think he's right-handed, but I could be wrong.
Well, then it makes less sense.
Right. Typically, just so you know, if we have a reverse pass in, we only run it to one side. We never practice it to the other side. In other words, if you got a right-handed quarterback, we're going to start left, reverse right, and give him a chance to make the easy throw. If he's right-handed, we're never going to start right, reverse left, and ask him to make a hard throw. He's not a quarterback to begin with. Hope that makes sense. So we practice the one way we're going to run it in the game, and you might say, well, what do you do if you want to run the play? Well, you get to the proper hash, and then you call it. It's not that hard to get to the hash that you need to be on.
Right, and I'm just seeing if I'm missing. If I missed your comments earlier, I apologize. We've had I think it's safe to say we've had thousands of chats, thousands of comments in the chat, and I simply can't get to all of them. James says, I wonder what would happen if Phil Parker, if he was in charge or recruiting as a whole. If it seems he can bring in loads of defensive talent, it'd be interesting to see what he could do with it all. I think I've always said this, not even about Iowa. I think he'd be a tremendous head coach somewhere, Don, if he's interested in that.
Well, fundamentally, he is recruiting every defensive player that we have. You can bet when those defensive players come on campus, they're not just spending time with the head coach and the position coach. They're spending some time with the defensive coordinator too. So he's got his finger on every last player that we're recruiting to our defense.
Lisa's here. She says, holy smokes, you are still going strong. We are, Lisa. She adds, I'm sure you've covered this, but I had to watch on my phone, and the Riley Moss play looked legit to me. What did you all see? I'm assuming she's talking about the recovery. But again, I think we can both agree, Don, that the forearm was down. And we've talked about that a couple times.
Barely down. Just like they barely made that second field goal. I thought it was going to be wide for a second there, but it barely got inside that left upright.
All right, folks. Tough day. Iowa losing to Illinois on the road, 9-6. The Hawkeyes fall to 3-3, 1-2 in the Big Ten, with a very, very interesting bye week in front of us. Very, very intriguing and interesting bye week in front of us. If you haven't done so already, here, if you're watching from the Hawkeye of the Storm or Iowa football at the voice of college football, I want to thank Mark Rogers for helping make this possible, the simulcast. Please subscribe to both channels. Please hit the like button on both videos. If you could, that certainly is appreciated. The little thumbs up below this video. If you're interested in sponsoring the show, if you or you know a business that would do well to sponsor, boy, what a reach you'd get here. From the Eye of the Storm at Outlook.com. That's from the Eye of the Storm at Outlook.com. And speaking of sponsorships, I want to give a shout out to Josue Alvarez over at Dewey Ford in Ankeny. He is doing great stuff with car sales. I talk about all our sponsors. All of our sponsors are doing great stuff, but he'll treat you right. He'll treat you fair. He'll be honest with you and get you in the right car that suits your needs, whether you're talking a new or a used car. Certainly in this market, you need good direction. So get it from Josue Alvarez down at Dewey Ford in Ankeny. And of course, if you tell him that From the Hawkeye of the Storm sent you, you'll get a $100 Casey's gas card with any purchase through Josue at Dewey Ford in Ankeny. Call him at 515-776-1068, 515-776-1068. And again, mention From the Hawkeye of the Storm. Eisman 57, appreciate the super chat, sir. Thanks for the marathon stream. This ain't a marathon stream, Don. We do this on a weekly.
Can you make a statement, Corey, that I'm up this late every night anyway?
You're up this late every night.
This is the truth. I'm still going to do analytics on last night's game and the Iowa game. I'm going to do that tonight. That'll leave me 4 games for tomorrow.
And just for the record, I will probably pay for this tomorrow, but I'm not doing a show tomorrow.
Not me. I'm sleeping in.
We'll see if I get some content on the channel tomorrow. I might actually surprise some people with some content on the channel. But thank you, Eisman 57, for the donation. Remember to follow me at From the Hawkeye on Twitter. At From the Hawkeye on Twitter. You can also like the Facebook page. I would appreciate it if you like the Facebook page. The Facebook page needs to grow. I haven't done a good job promoting it. I say that every time, but it's there. It's there. So like and follow, share it out. Maybe some Facebook groups and help us out with the reach there. From the Hawkeye of the Storm on Facebook. And I teased this on Twitter the other day. We've got some exciting programming news regarding basketball season that is going to be dropping within the next week. And I think some pretty good shows coming up as well. Please share this show out on social media. If you're enjoying any of the content here From the Hawkeye of the Storm and Iowa football at the voice of college football, others will as well. I'm confident in saying that, especially as long as we have people like Don Patterson here. If you're interested in becoming a premium subscriber, click join next to From the Hawkeye of the Storm on YouTube. And this coming Wednesday at 9 p.m., it's my weekly show, Hawkeye Hangout, which features you, the listener, you, the Hawkeye fan. We can talk Iowa basketball. Maybe fans want to talk basketball. We got Iowa hoops just around the corner. Don, you excited for the hardwood action with Fran's squad here in a few weeks?
I'm excited to see our defense match up against Ohio State.
Okay, well, locked in on football. I get it. We got a bye week ahead of us, but I'm excited for basketball, and I'm not going to stop watching. I'm not going to stop watching. Listen, I hope no fans stop watching Iowa football, Don. As much as we want change with this offense, we want forward movement and progress. It's not that's not going to help. I think it's fair to say you're not going to get, even if you want change, you're not going to get that by turning the television off. But I understand fans who are frustrated to a point where they feel cheated because they're supporting the program. But I hope everybody continues to watch Iowa football, tuning into this show. And, of course, as Iowa basketball is right around the corner. Just making sure we didn't miss anything urgent. Don, once again, you did it. Appreciate you being here. And on behalf of everybody here, thank you for being here. And I'll be back Wednesday for Hawkeye Hangout. And don't forget, if you're watching, well, even if you're not watching on our Iowa Football at the Voice of College Football channel, every Tuesday I'm live with the Voice of College Football, Mark Rogers. This should be an interesting one because we do have a bye week. So normally we have a special guest with our opponent, a look at our opponent. Last week we had Alec Bussey, who has covered works for Rivals and covers the recruiting trail hard, but has also been a part of the Illinois program. He's now a part of the Kansas State program. And how about the Wildcats going 2 Ames today, taking down the Cyclones in an Iowa-esque type score? I believe it was 10-9, Don.
Wow. I wasn't aware of that.
Adrian Martinez.
I do know who TCU's quarterback is. You're talking about K-State. I'm sorry.
K-State.
I know who K-State's quarterback is too. We've talked about him many times.
I know who TCU's is. And how about that was a close game, TCU Kansas. But how about, have you ever seen a score like the Red River rivalry today? Have you ever seen a score in that series resembling that?
I didn't think I'd ever see either team appear to give up.
I didn't either.
If you're an OU fan, you got to be on suicide watch tonight. That's probably one of the biggest spreads in the history of the series, I bet.
From the Hawkeye of the Storm, the podcast is available through Spotify, Apple, Google. If you missed any of the podcasts and want to listen to it on demand through any of our podcast platforms, you can do so. Again, Spotify, Apple, Google, Anchor, Amazon, and more. Search From the Hawkeye of the Storm. And again, this Tuesday, we're live with the Voice of College Football, Mark Rogers, at 4:30 p.m. Central Time. 4:30 p.m. Central Time. And one more super chat from Eisman57, who's feeling generous. He says, don't want to keep you guys up, but I'm interested in knowing Don's opinion on Oregon and Washington possibly joining the Big Ten. Short answer is acceptable. How about that, Don? A short answer is acceptable.
I didn't like the idea of UCLA and SC joining, so you would imagine I'm not any more excited about the other two.
Well,
what do you do with 16 teams? I mean, how many of them are you going to play? Are you going to play 9 of them? That's not a very representative schedule. I mean, clearly some teams would have a softer schedule than others, not to mention the travel issues. I think the whole thing's absurd. 14's the limit as far as I'm concerned. 14's too many.
So if the SEC adds 22 schools and they've got Clemson and they add Miami and Florida State, you don't want the Big Ten to expand.
Now you're putting a different qualifier in there. There would be reason to consider further expansion. I'll give you that.
Got to keep up.
There's only going to be 2 super conferences. We need to be one of them.
That's the arms race that we're a part of right now. All right, folks. Appreciate everybody being here. We'll talk to you Tuesday with Mark Rogers, and this coming Wednesday, 9 p.m. right here for Hawkeye Hangout. And Don, you and I will be back. I know you are doing a game on the day of the Ohio State game, so I'll be definitely here on that Saturday. But if not, we'll probably chat on that Sunday.
I'll be back right now. I'll be back late Saturday night.
All right, folks. For Coach Don Patterson, I'm Corey Bratta. Appreciate everybody being here, and have a great morning.